Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. Your long nightmare is over. Eric can still hurt you. Chip will hurt you later, but they can't do it without me being here. Except for the fact that I'm leaving after the Rangers make their fifth overall pick, because I'm going to go on Greg and Ryan's show for a little bit, and then I will come back. So they may hurt you in that time. It's like that episode of Family Guy where it's like, no one calls me a fizzle and gets away with it. Except for that guy that called me a fizzle and ran off. He got away with it. Welcome to Blueshirt Bandwidth, live edition. This is the second one we've done. I don't know how many of you even know this is happening, but it is. I'm your host, Joe Fortunato, tan for my time in the Bahamas. It was lovely. I expected the Rangers to do massive things while I was away because it would just be the way things work out. They ended up doing nothing. They did make a trade today, though, so I guess there's something there. Joined, as always, by my co-host, Eric the Beard. I was going to get mean. I decided against it. The Beard Cone. Eric, how are you?
Good, Joe. Yes, you're right. The Rangers have not done much, and hopefully that changes. Well, it'll change in some way this evening, right? They are going to make at least one pick here in the first round, we assume. Unless something crazy happens, they would have to trade both picks to not make a pick here in the first round. So something is going to happen. Something is actually going to happen, and now's the time where we just kind of lay back and wait and enjoy it.
So let's do it live. How are we? We're going to treat this as like a half podcast until things start happening.
Pretty much, yes.
All right. Can I start weighing in a little bit on some concerns of things I have?
You can do whatever you damn well please.
Goddamn right. It's my fucking show. All right. A lot of people are going to be happy about this. Listen, Eric and I have been a little bit in defense mode here of Drury. And I don't mean like defending him nonstop. I mean, we've sort of walked off the defense of Drury train for a while. We've been doing it. We're eating crow. Don't worry. We're big enough men to admit that we're wrong. But over the past week, it's sort of become apparent to me that, and there's a few reasons why this may happen. The Rangers are not getting, and by proxy, really, Chris Drury and I guess Mike Sullivan are not getting really any of the USA glow up that we were expecting them to get last year. It really seems like hoping. Well, yeah, I guess, but expecting. I think there was a reasonable assumption that Mike Sullivan was going to have the cachet to bring some of these guys over, and at this stage in the game, it seems like it's just Bill, I'm not an idiot, Guerin, and Zito in Florida who are actually now. To the point of some caveats, obviously Tkachuk wants to play with his brother, so like that's a thing. But yes. Larkin's not, the Rangers aren't on Larkin's list. Werenski's likely being traded. Certainly doesn't seem like the Rangers are going to be involved in that. Hellebuck, obviously, they don't need because they have Shesterkin, but it just kind of feels like the Rangers are not getting any of that swagger that we were kind of hoping for. And you and I pontificated on why the Rangers allowed JT Miller to play last year so hurt when he wasn't playing that well, taking Gabe Perreault off the top power play unit to keep JT Miller happy because hopefully he was going to kind of lure these guys over here. I don't know how much of this you and Chip talked about on the show itself, but like none of that is happening. And I know there's still time and Drury has, an opportunity to do some things here. Robertson's, out there at this point and supposedly doesn't want to go to Seattle, which makes a lot of sense. And he also didn't want to go to St. Louis. Was that the other team that made an offer for him that he didn't want?
St. Louis was the other, yes.
So maybe there's something there, but it doesn't feel like it. And I'm just not, if we're not luring these USA guys over here to the New York Rangers USA Mafia, I'm not sure how this gets any better anytime soon. And you and I are fine with it not getting better anytime soon, as long as that's the ideology behind, the men in charge, and that does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, I think the biggest clear and obvious complaint that I have warmed up to about Chris Drury is I don't know what, again, this is not particularly new. I think we talked about this a couple months ago as well. I don't know what the plan is. And part of that is he doesn't share it publicly. And I think there's a reason to understand why you don't just go out there and say, this is the plan and this is what I'm going to do. But there's also kind of clearly no back channeling that's going on. And I also can't look at what I just can observe and piece together, oh, I think this is what the plan is. And it even comes down to something just as fundamental as the distinction between a retool and a rebuild. So we have talked about this. You and I have talked about this. Chip and I talked about this. We talked about it some with Ryan. We talked about it a little bit with Chris and Roberto as well on the podcast episode this week. And yeah, it's I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if the actions they're making say rebuild, like the slowness at which they're acting. And I think it's also starting to affect fans too, because like we're getting a lot of arguing past each other on what kind of moves they should do. I hear a lot of like, well, the Rangers aren't a Jason Robertson away from being a contender. You're correct. They're not. They were also, at the time that they signed Artemi Panarin, not an Artemi Panarin away from being a contender, but he sure as hell expedited that timeline. So if it is a retool, you want to add that kind of talent now. Somebody who's 26 years old is absolutely within the window. You should go out of your way to acquire a guy like that. If it's a rebuild, I can understand the argument against sending away the kind of futures you would have to send away to get Jason Robertson, because those are needed assets for the rebuilding that you're going to have to do, because that's a longer term enterprise that you're engaging in. So I think beyond the point that I have made too many times now to want to repeat here again, which is so many of the individual moves. And for fuck's sake, man, we even saw some of this today about Brett fucking Berard. Man, it was like, oh, we didn't get enough in return. It's Brett fucking Berard. It's a guy who was behind several other players, who is the ceiling of probably a fourth line winger, and you're deeply concerned that you don't like the return for. People just, there's that. There is the Jason Robertson, you don't want to pay him
Yeah,
that
not
much.
worth the money. Yes, I've seen that
Not
too.
worth
It's ridiculous.
Not worth. I just, nobody knows what they want, and I think this is the biggest problem, even in spite of the letter, which I find to be kind of fascinating, because I think the whole point of the letter was to kind of, I don't think you could pacify the fan base, but at least inform the fan base somewhat, and it seems to have created more confusion, not less.
Yeah, so a couple of threads to pick at there. I am getting increasingly concerned, and I think I said this to you and Chip yesterday, that like I don't think Drury's acting slowly here. I just don't think things are materializing, which is kind of worse because it just means that the plans that he's putting in place are not really going anywhere. Let's talk about the Berard trade for a hot second, simply because it happened. Also, I'm entirely relying on you to give me news because I can't stream the draft, so you have to tell me like what's
Yeah,
happening and the people what's
I
happening.
regret to inform you that Justin Bieber is speaking at the
Well, he's
moment.
the one who's
So
given the pick. Okay,
yeah, it would
all
seem
right.
that
So
that is the
they're gonna,
case.
unless they don't take McKenna. Uh, look, I made my own comment about this trade, which is obviously this shows you what the Rangers think of Brett Berard. The Rangers traded a guy who likely could become a fourth line role player. That's probably his ceiling in the NHL, for someone
Agreed.
who is never going to see the NHL for the Rangers. Yeah, I think you're okay with being like, I don't know really why the Rangers did this. I even said to Eric, like, I'd just rather have a draft pick, honestly, and take the lottery.
Which I
Chances
understand.
either which way, this is nothing to freak out about. It's very clear that he was not a Sullivan guy. If he's not going to play, just get something for him. Hartford also happens to be a goddamn disaster. Maybe there's an expectation that some of those guys are going to be playing up at the NHL level because maybe some of them are going to be traded within the next couple of days that are on the NHL level. Braden Schneider's name has been out there a lot. Will Borgen's name is out there. Vladislav Gavrikov may want to go back to LA. Like, fine. I understand it. Whatever. The endless, Chip had a really good point about this, which is
The pick
fans
is
were.
Gavin McKenna.
It is Gavin
Just
McKenna. Okay.
not that there was any real doubt, but
Chip was right about this, where there was anger that the Rangers were in on some of the guys and that were traded over the past couple of days, and that Chris Drury, didn't do it. You can't be mad at both. Him kicking the tires on a couple of players, specifically, listen, the Alex Tuck thing is terrible. There was actually absolutely no reason the Rangers should have been in on it. Him, I guess, exploring what it would have cost to get him is fine, whatever. Let Washington deal with that bullshit. That is not a contract that I wanted to go anywhere near. But Byram's a little bit of a different story, right? I know we're not as high on him as probably really anyone is actually, except for Chicago, but he's a 24-year-old, some upside NHL defender that I don't think would have really worked in a Mike Sullivan system, just knowing what I know about him. But there's nothing wrong with Drury looking around and seeing what the cost would be for a younger player with upside. Like, it's okay. Those are the things you want him to do. You can't be mad at him for not making the trade and for kicking the tires. And I think a lot of what's ended up happening here with the Chris Drury piece is what I'm saying to you comes off as a defense of Chris Drury. And it is, but not because of anything Chris Drury is doing right or wrong. It's just sometimes you just need to pick a lane. And I think sometimes the criticisms of Chris Drury are way outside. Like, you're putting criticisms where nothing can happen that will make you happy. So I think and you're about to see some of it right now. If San Jose takes and uses the second overall pick, obviously the Rangers weren't able to trade up. It's very clear that they've been trying to. So if you have a criticism of Drury, it should probably be the criticism that I'm about to give of him, which is like, he doesn't seem to get the job done anywhere of late. Also, I can completely hear the TV in the background for you. So you should probably lower that for the people. You can't fix
I'm
these
sorry,
things in post, Eric.
Yeah, I wanted them all to get a sense of the Justin Bieber hype.
The Justin
that was
Bieber
going
hype.
on. Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
my criticism of Drury is other trades just seem to fucking happen. It looks like Boston's going to get, Paterka. Rangers trades get, like, leaked out to the media, and then nothing happens for days on end. And if we're going to cycle back, let's cycle back to McTavish right now. There is no way the information being flooded through the media is not coming from Anaheim. It is
Agreed.
increasingly clear that Anaheim is very simply trying to get the Rangers to up their offer. If there's a real belief that they're not trading McTavish today, then the other main competitor to the Rangers, which is the Blues, offer 4 first-round picks that are going to be used today is obviously not part of the trade anymore once it's been used. So, like, okay, we know it's not Lafreniere. We know it's not Trocheck. There's competing conversations about whether or not Schneider's involved. Maybe it's Will Borgen, if not Schneider. Can't imagine it's Gavrikov. He has a no movement clause. So, like, those are the options. That's fine.
I think the Rangers want to send 26 and Borgen, and the Ducks want 26 and Schneider. And if they're sending 26 and Schneider, I think
by the way, just to be
we
clear.
are speculating. Of course, we're speculating. If they're sending 26 and Schneider, I think that they want the return to be McTavish plus, and the Ducks don't want to send another asset. So I think that's my speculation of what the holdup in all of this is.
Well,
and I can understand that.
Let's add one other piece to this. St. Louis is offering futures, right? Of the two teams that are actually in right now, it's St. Louis and the Rangers. St. Louis is offering futures. The Rangers are offering a roster player and something. Vince, I believe, was the one that said that he had heard pushback that Schneider was in the deal. We know it's not Lafreniere. We know it's not Trocheck. So if not Schneider, it's probably Borgen. It's not Fox, not Gavrikov, unless Gavrikov wants to go to Anaheim for some reason. So there are a lot of defensemen that are on the way out, including Jacob Trouba from Anaheim, it would seem. So it does make sense that the Rangers offer is an offer that they would be more interested in. They've made it very clear that Verbeek does not want to take a step back. Cool. Then I understand him going to the media and saying, like, hey, listen, oh boy, these teams are coming in. I don't know if we're going to trade him today. Here's another team that's interested in him. Like, fine, do your like, whatever. This is what you're supposed to do. It's the game. I totally understand it. But at some point, Drury's got to be like, hey, we're moving on from this. Like, you're either doing it or you're not doing it. You're not holding us hostage. Maybe the trade happens in a couple of hours when you and I are talking before the Rangers make the 26th pick, and then we're talking about a trade instead of a draft selection. But you and I are on different sides of the fence on this. I'm higher on McTavish than you are. What would your thoughts be if it was Borgen and the 26th pick versus Schneider?
I think Borgen in 26 would be fine.
I think that would be just great.
Yeah, this really is the difference in our opinion of Mason McTavish here, who I think is on one hand, yes, he is, he's put up 40 something points in several seasons. And I hear what you have told me about people who believe that he's been misused in Anaheim. Part of this is the same reason that I had just such an initially negative reaction to Keaton Vierhoff being the pick that the Rangers were being tied to at number 5 there. Can we just stop bringing in ungodly slow players, which is what Mason McTavish is? Like, the man has no speed and no acceleration. Now, which is not to say that he can't be a useful hockey player at all. We've had this conversation. We've had the conversation about there's a little bit of here's where Charlie will throw the plane with all the bullet holes meme at me. That yes, we can point out all of the subpar skaters who are successful because they're the ones who've made it through to the NHL and been able to sustain careers there. The rest who aren't good skaters have just never made it to that level. The combination of his speed problems, his skating problems, and being yet another player the Rangers would be acquiring who can't skate well, and the fact that virtually every fancy stat model that I have looked at says that, like, not just is he not good defensively, like, he is one of the worst players I have seen rated defensively. Even the ones that think he's a very good offensive player, like he's a 0 on defense. And we've had a version of this conversation with regard to Scott Morrow. It's more pronounced with defensemen since defending is part of, a major part of what they do. But a player like that who is going to be viewed by their coach as a defensive liability every time that they step on the ice, especially at an important role like center, suggests to me that he's the kind of guy who probably will have the most success being moved to the wing. And then we're not talking about bringing in a center, right? We're talking about bringing in a winger who also can't skate, but who might be able to put some points up. So I'm just
Well, you know how
really
low
not super enthused about the player himself, and I would love to be wrong, but I would accept 26 in Borgen. I think 26 in Schneider is too much, and they need to be getting some other kind of asset back with it. I think that's a completely reasonable ask. And the idea of, like, whoever suggested that, like, Lafreniere and Mason McTavish are comparable players is, and again, I have had my own problems with Lafreniere, is galaxy brain bullshit.
Yeah,
Like,
I
he
don't
is at
disagree
least
with
a
that. It's insane.
good two-way player, a good competent defensive player. So I'm just so not really enthused by the Mason McTavish of it all that I can't get particularly excited about even just a Borgen and 26 for him as what they're sending.
I would argue that if the Rangers are going to go after players in a change of scenery trade, or these are the types of guys that they're trying to target, McTavish is sort of exactly what the Rangers should be going after. Let me caveat that by saying not the exact prototype, right? You'd like a guy who can skate a little bit
You'd like a
better.
guy who could
You'd
skate?
certainly
Yeah.
like a guy who could defend a little bit better, but a younger player with upside that's maybe being misused in his current role. Anaheim has really only been a competent hockey team this year. So maybe he doesn't mesh well with, Quinnenville, and it's just not something that's happening. He's maybe not playing with the best competition. Like his teammates are not necessarily. And look, I don't watch a ton of the Ducks. I don't know any of these things. These are some of the things that I've heard. Some of these have come from Ranger fans who are looking for the same reasons that I am to be a little bit more bullish about this.
All right, we've
And
got the Sharks pick coming in here.
all right, so they're making their selection.
They are making the selection at number 2.
So we're in full agreement this is going to be Stenberg here.
It absolutely should be, and it's going to get really weird really fast if it is not.
Buffalo landing that 4th overall pick to have Stenberg sit there would be a huge kick in the nuts.
That Buffalo has done some incredible work over
Unbelievably
the
good
last
work.
couple
Now,
of days.
they could do even more good work by trading a haul for Vincent Trocheck, which they should do right now. They should be doing it like
They absolutely
immediately.
should do that. But like
Yes.
to turn like the Bowen Byram thing, which broke while we were doing the podcast on Tuesday night. So like what they have turned, getting the 4th overall pick there, and like bringing
Sometimes
in
you
now
just need a
Olin
stupid
Zellweger.
GM. Like sometimes
Yes.
you just need a fucking stupid general manager. That's why Drury calling everyone is nothing you should be freaking out about. That's actually the job.
Yes. Yes, you're correct. That like That is the job. Now, I know that some people's answer is going to be like Drury is the guy that a lot of them should be calling because they think he is that stupid general manager. But he's not the guy who overpaid for Bowen Byram. He was apparently in on it and not willing to offer up as much
well, that's
as the
the other thing.
Blackhawks
Like
were.
him being in on a trade. This is what I was saying before. Like him being in on the Byram trade and then backing off when the price became insane.
It is Stenberg.
They've taken Stenberg. Okay. Well, that was to be expected. That's reasonable business. Okay, let's talk about this now. There's no way Malhotra's not going third. There has been a ton of talk that the Rangers might be trading back. Do you think if Malhotra goes off the board here, the Rangers trade back from 5?
I'm going to say no.
Who do you think they're... Well, I guess it's a stupid question because we have to see who Buffalo takes. But my guess is the Rangers are taking Smits. That's where I think this is headed. I would definitely take Reid over him.
I would take Carl's over him.
Carl's was my pick. There's some commentary there about, maybe not really wanting to play in a super big metropolis thing that seems to be making the rounds that I would definitely have in the back of my head. So I could understand the Rangers maybe not being super thrilled there. Smits is interesting because there are some people who are like, yo, this kid is legit. Like, this is one of the best. This could be one of the best players in the draft. Then there's some people who are completely underwhelmed by him. And this is what we've been talking about for a while. The Rangers are in a position right now where this draft really from let's say 3 to 7, the best player in the draft may be in there. The worst player in the draft may be in there too. You just don't know which one it is. There's a lot more risk there. McKenna Stenberg going off the board and the way that they went off the board is the way it should have played out. Stenberg is going to make the Sharks even better. I wonder if this reintroduces some Schneider conversations where maybe the Sharks are willing to move on from another young roster forward because they have Stenberg coming in. But the Sharks also have the 9th overall pick, so they're going to get their defenseman there. What do they care?
They do, and I think a lot of the assumption based on Dorofeyev traded to the Rangers. Darren Dreger reporting.
Okay.
That's something. We do not know yet. I'm looking now.
That was a big RFA expectation, right?
Yes. Yeah. Pavel Dorofayev to the Rangers. We do not know the return yet. I would have to guess 5.
This is great podcasting, by the way, that we're doing this right now.
I mean, this is inevitable in doing what we are doing here.
Yeah, I guess there's no way around it. So let's see here. So just for the people who don't know, he scored 37 goals with the Golden Knights this year. He's a 25-year-old winger. He scored 37 goals in 82 games. He had 64 points, 16 points in 22 playoff games, 12 goals, much like Brett Howden. 52 points with the Knights last year as well. This is definitely a needle-moving move for the Rangers.
That is a good player that they just acquired.
Yes. Now it's going to depend on what they had to give
what
up.
The return is. Yeah.
But I'm also live tweeting.
We're live tweeting. I'm looking up I'm looking up the hockey stat card for him. 94% projected WARD. 26 years old. Plays both wings. A good offensive player, a very good defensive player as well. This
is genuinely this is a massive. If you're talking about bringing talent in, that
is doing it.
The type of talent that you want to bring in that's coming in at an age where it might matter, right? Like, this is a younger player. This is not Tuck, who's 30 years old. He's 25. He turns 26 in October. All right, I have to keep talking. I can't not say anything.
Kaplan has tweeted it. Yep. But no word on the return.
No word on the return.
Right, we'll keep an eye on that.
You'd think if it was 4 or 5, well, maybe not actually. Well, it's not going to be Trocheck. So let's think about this right now. So this is for Vegas. I am assuming Vegas is going after Larkin. and they're trying to clear cap space because
so
they were
it's not going to be
concerned
Trocheck
here.
because of that.
So it's not going to be Trocheck because of that. It
Schneider?
probably isn't
Would they
going to
have
be
an interest
Schneider
in
either
Schneider?
because you have to pay Schneider. Schneider's a restricted free agent this summer, is he not?
You wouldn't have to pay him as much as you were going to have to pay Dorofeyev.
No, but like, why even go down that road, I guess? But to your point, what futures do the Rangers have outside of the 5th? Like, there's no way that, well, no, there's no way the 26th, he's an RFA. He's not an impending UFA. There's no way the 26th pick gets this done.
It's 26 pick plus if it's the 26 pick.
But let's return back to, this is exactly, so pending the return, we're doing this live. I'll remind all of you that we're doing this live. If you happen to be listening to this later and you're like, you fucking idiots, we're doing this live. This is exactly the type of splash you wanted the Rangers to do. Like, this is a really good trade pending the return. I'm going to keep saying that. How would you feel if it was the 5th overall? I think I'd have concerns.
Yes, but I guess my initial reaction would be the 5th overall pick could be anything. It could even be Pavel Dorofayev.
Yes, that's probably the right, take on this. But that's a really big swing here for a younger guy that you have the money to sign. Like, it's not really an issue at that point. Granted, I'm not telling you to give the
Caleb
guy $15 million
Malhotra to the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, there was no way that wasn't happening, dude. He's sitting next to his father.
Well, yes. Now that I see that, yes.
They're watching on the couch. Like, I don't know why you thought this was not going to be a thing.
I raised the possibility that it may not be a thing.
Sometimes you just need to understand that I am always right. I have never once been wrong, except for every argument I ever get into with my wife.
Charlie,
aside from those, I have never been wrong.
Charlie, you heard that last statement. Bring the receipts.
Never been wrong. I don't think Charlie can ombudsman report a live show. I think that's against the rules that I just made up.
This is getting posted as a podcast, so he definitely can.
No, Charlie, don't fucking do it, Charlie. Do not do it.
New York's number 5 pick is not involved, according to Emily Kaplan.
That makes this very interesting now, doesn't it, Mr. Cohn?
It does.
That is again, depends on what's going on here, but that's a huge, huge pull if you don't have to give up the 5th overall pick.
At what I think we can probably, hopefully, assume here is a pretty reasonable and acceptable return.
By the way, but I should have mentioned this from the beginning. I ate Colony today. I had Colony pizza for dinner tonight. So I made my sacrifice to Chris Drury. This is exactly what I was just complaining about. Like, the McTavish thing just took forever and then never materialized or has not materialized. Yep. And I was like, why can't Drury just get trades that come out of nowhere? This one just came out of nowhere. And the 26th overall pick, the 92nd overall pick, and a conditional 2028 first. The pick is top 10 protected per Molly Walker. So the Rangers give the 26 this year, the 92 this year, which is the 3rd round pick, and then a conditional 2028 first.
Well, hey,
so not next year's first, the year after that.
Which I think, again, if we're going back to the conversation that we opened this with, right, or very early on, rebuild versus retool. If it's retool, and if they're really going for it like this, your hope is that pick is mid round at best, late round, hopefully. Like, you're hoping to be a much better team by then, and you're not caring as much about.
But if you're not, it's top 10 protected.
It's top 10 protected as well. If it all comes crashing down, still, yeah, that's good work. I mean, I know that it's not permissible anymore to say good things about Chris Drury. You know, we're not allowed to say that. You can't say good things about Chris Drury. That's the rule now. That's the goal. This is a good trade.
This is a good trade. This is borderline great trade. I would have loved to not, like, you're not getting, more than likely, the players that we were hoping the Rangers were going to touch in the back half of this draft. They're not turning into this guy.
Dorofeyev is definitely.
So like, we shouldn't say that. I am such a staunch believer that that's not necessarily true, but odds are increasingly unlikely that that's going to be the case. Yes, you give up a 1st round pick in 2028, 2 years from now. To your point, if the Rangers are better, great. You don't have to worry about it. It's a late first round pick. Hopefully they're, playoff contenders. This is a guy that fits right now. Maybe this is a way that you can kind of convince another guy like Jason Robertson or somebody else to come in. Instant offense. I mean, the guy was a 37 goal scorer this year. Granted, Vegas made it to the Stanley Cup. They have a lot of talent on the roster. They were kind of a
Uh-huh.
middle of the road team. So I can't tell you that he's just like riding the coattails of people. I think this is a great trade.
Let me ask a question.
Ask the question.
Do we keep Trocheck now?
I think that bridge is too far burned. And if the Rangers are targeting McTavish, they're targeting McTavish because they think they're going to trade Trocheck and they're going to replace him with
That's
McTavish. Is
that
how I'm
is
thinking.
I think that's wrong. Like, I think that's bad thinking if that's the thinking, because you're taking a defensively reliable, marginally good offensive player and replacing him with a good offensive, terrible defensive player. They are not a one-for-one translation. Like, this is the reason why I've been banging on so long about Vincent Trocheck really being a third-line center. The way he plays is built for a third-line center. The way that Mason McTavish plays is second line center, still with some concerns about his speed and his defensive acumen. But the way you want a third line to play is you want some defensive responsibility there. So I don't think those things translate, at least in terms of what the player
But
qualities are.
I'm not to be fair to myself here. I'm not talking about a one-for-one replacement. I'm talking about I think the Rangers are it's not going to be the only move that happens over the next couple of days, if you will. I forget McTavish for a minute. Let's pretend that doesn't happen because at this point it's not going to. I think you're so far down the road. You've had conversations with at least 4 different teams about Vincent Trocheck. If Dylan Larkin doesn't go to Minnesota, I gotta feel like Guerin is gonna absolutely up the ante for him and just make the trade. He's got to do something there.
And you get Urov.
Otherwise, I don't know if you're getting Urov. I don't. I
What
think
is the return then? Like, are we back to Charlie Stramel and a first round pick next year?
If you are, you're no worse off than you. And I was about to say this. Like, I think the smartest point, and I had a mentor that said never grade your own report card, but I'm gonna grade my own report card. The smartest thing you and I said about the Vincent Trocheck not being traded at the deadline piece was the offers may not get better in the summer. They're not going to get worse. So if we just had to wait and deal with a little bit more of Vincent Trocheck and we're getting the same thing, who cares? No harm, no foul.
Yeah, I mean, my impression, we've got the Buffalo pick coming up in a moment here. My impression was that, again, Charlie Stramel and a first-round pick was insufficient return then, not just based on we thought we could get more later.
I also don't think Stramel and a first would be ideal. I think there's better trades that the Rangers could make. But I would be surprised if that's what was on the table. Because Montreal wasn't certainly in the bidding war last year. Now they are over the deadline. Now it seems like they are. It seems like LA might be a real thing for Trocheck at this point. Whether or not they have the guns to actually get it done, I don't know, because we talked about this on the podcast 2 weeks ago. The Rangers kind of pilfered from LA and they got, Green Tree. There's really nothing left there. But I just think there's too many other things floating around with Trocheck that it's not going to be better than that. That was hey, we're BFFs, Drury, take this trade because we're going to go win a gold medal. That Bill Guerin even referenced when the trade didn't happen. That I thought I was going to get like a best friend discount and it didn't happen. So, but this Dorofeyev changes, a lot of things. You have an actual gunner now that can play on your top line.
Daxon Rudolph is the pick from Buffalo.
Well, now that's interesting. Now you have a fucking smorgasbord. Okay. I know I've talked up the Vigo
Chase
Bjork
Reid
thing, and I still think the Rangers should take him. I don't know how
They're
you
not
pass on
taking him.
Chase. I don't know how you pass on Chase Reid here.
I agree with that. If this is Alberts Smits, and I have to think that a lot of the Smits conversation, or at least I have to hope a lot of the Smits conversation, was based on the assumption that Chase Reid was already going to be off the board and comparing him more to Carl's and saying that you think he's, quote, the more NHL ready person. Yeah.
You got to take
It's
Reid
got to
here.
be.
You
It's
can't
got to
not
be
take
Reid.
Reid here. You have to.
It's got to be Reid.
Which means it won't be Reid, to be fair. But God, so much is happening right now. This is incredible. So
This is more than I was expecting. And
this is way more than I was
Joe,
expecting.
We also now don't have to hang around until the 26th pick.
No, we don't have to hang around to the 26th pick. Wow, Daxon Rudolph was not even in the conversation.
That is off the board.
This is where, and far be it for me to throw stones before the Rangers pick. It's actually a dangerous thing for me to do right now. But like, you didn't want to trade back
for that, yeah.
And now if you're the Rangers,
yeah,
and Smits is your guy, do you then decide, hey, we're going to trade back? And we know we'll have one of Carl's/Smits around.
This has got to be one of those cases where it's like you just did not expect X player to be available, and now that X player is available, take the player. You got to take. You got to take the higher valued player. You may love Smits, but like
you got
you got to take the guy who some were arguing was like
is the best player in the draft.
The best player in the draft, at least not, if not that, second overall worthy.
Yeah, like
you got to take Chase Reid here.
You have to take Chase Reid here.
Now I'm nervous.
I'm also nervous. I'm freaking out a little bit. Last time that this happened, the Rangers lost the draft lottery, Eric. All right, just breathe. It's okay. Like, the pick should be in. That's how nervous I am. Unless Drury is trying to extract some enormous trade from somebody who... So, again, and I don't know that this is happening, but I'll once again give Drury preemptive props, and I'm making this situation up because I'm not sure. If you're Chris Drury, how much time do you have between picks? 10 minutes?
I think that's right.
Is there a reason not to take all 10 minutes and just see who comes calling for Chase Reid? And then you can just take Chase Reid. You don't have to, why not listen to what people have to bring to the table?
You absolutely should listen and take all of those phone calls. Ultimately, unless somebody is going to pay through the nose for it.
Correct.
Can
people chat with us right now, or did you put something in the chat? Is there a chat? I'm seeing a two chat on this. It says it on the top. It says 2 chat messages.
Oh. Public chat, yes.
There's a public chat? Who's chatting? There's
Ed,
I can see how many
Scott, and Glenn, all from Facebook.
Are they saying nice things or bad things?
Ed says, "Hey Joe." Scott says we're all freaking out, and Glenn says take Reid, and you're all correct. You're all correct.
Hello, everyone. So the other thing here that I was just thinking about, going back to Dorofeyev for a minute, I'm not as concerned about that 2028 pick if the Rangers are getting, maybe now they're more willing to get future firsts for Trocheck.
I think that's a very good
Schneider,
point.
Right? Like, okay, now if the offer comes from Minnesota that, hey, we'll give you a 2028 first instead of next year's first.
2 minutes and 44 seconds remaining for the Rangers to pick. The clock is ticking.
All right, listen.
I agree with you, though. I think
yes, it gives you the opportunity to, you have 2 years to figure that out now.
Yeah. You can get futures in return for those guys and feel better about it than the need to bring back roster players now because you've already added the major piece roster player that you were looking for. Two minutes.
Well, yeah, just listen. Take your calls, Chris. I know you're still nursing an hangover from getting
place an order for some Colony pizza.
Yep, just
Colony Grill pizza. I told you, right? I had they have Colony Grill pizza at the Washington Nationals games. I did have some stadium version Colony Grill pizza.
Is it actually Colony? Did we talked about this?
It's actually Colony Grill, yeah. which I guess
It's
they're in Maryland and Virginia.
yeah,
I
so
imagine it's not as good as the location that you were getting it from, but it was not bad.
I will say it's a bar pizza is a very Connecticut thing. It's good pizza. It's not gonna change your life. It's not Pepe's, it's not Sally's, but it's
I
really,
don't know what
really
those
good
are.
bar pizza. Pepe's is I would consider the best pizza in the world. Frank
Interesting.
Pepe's? You never heard of Frank Pepe's?
No.
When you come visit me in Connecticut, we'll get it. It's coal-fired pizza. It will change your life.
Okay.
The
I mean,
same
I've
way
had
they
coal-fired pizza before, just not in Connecticut.
well, you should have it where it's from and not do your, like, St. Louis party pizza or whatever the fuck it is you guys do over there.
St. Louis pizza is a war crime. I want to be abundantly clear about that. I will defend Chicago tavern style pizza vociferously, not deep dish. Deep dish is like Navy Pier or the Statue of Liberty for New Yorkers. You only do that when you have relatives or friends in from out of town. Charlie, I want you to know, Charlie just texted and said Joe is right about pizza. So,
Oh, look at this. Wow,
yeah, there
Charlie,
you go.
thank you. Charlie, you know what, Charlie? You kinda needed you needed to do this to get back into my good graces.
25 seconds, Joe.
So Shayna posted her Shayna from The Athletic, like the net rating and how much he would be worth. Contract projection for him is $9 million. His market value is 11.1.
I
So
like the sound of that.
net rating is a plus 9.1, 6.9 offensive, 2.3 defensive. She says he's not a major play driver, but an incredibly skilled goal scorer. The big question is whether the Rangers can maximize his game as well as the Golden Knights
Well,
did.
that is
Fair.
something that they need as a goal scorer. Like you
Correct.
hope that you're going
Now
to
they have
start
a trigger man for the
establishing
power
play
play.
drivers. Yep.
Yes,
All right.
like this is
Hold on. I'm turning the volume up on this a little bit so I can hear.
well, we still have to talk. Is the pick do we have like the pick is
Hold
in
on.
thing?
It's Smits.
They've taken Smits.
They've taken Smits.
Oh, see, Chris, I knew this is what you were gonna do. Oh, he had a thing and then he didn't do it.
That is a letdown now.
Why not trade the pick then if you're going with Smits? Like I if Chase Reid is on the board and everybody thinks he's the guy,
I don't like that.
listen, so here's the deal. As I was saying this before, there's a lot of people who think that they're much higher on Smits than some others. He has done incredible things in professional hockey. He was playing in Latvia, I believe, and he's an imposing physical defenseman. He's very good. I think they're the like J Fresh people are telling you that he's going to be nothing more than just a minutes eating, second pair defenseman. He's not going to be anything special, which is still valuable. Probably not at fifth overall when Chase Reid. Like sometimes you just got to
Yeah.
take the fucking hit down the middle of the fairway. What are we doing? Why is every draft with the Rangers like this? I just
I, yeah. Yeah. I it was a fun 15 minutes there, wasn't it?
it was so Adam Herman just tweeted something out, and he's far more down on Smits than most. And he said his player comp is Ivan Proporov, big awesome skater, has some questions about his decision making. Adam says, "quote Would not have been my pick here by any stretch, but the data reflects really well on him, and there are a lot of physical tools to work with." We should be clear: this is not Mikkel over Tarasenko.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
clear, this is a
Hold on. There's a trade. I want to hear what this is.
It's funny, I could hear Bettman in the background.
Okay. I don't think it's anything major, but something just happened.
Something happened. That's the level of commentary
I missed
that
the
we're
beginning of
doing.
what Bettman said, and I'm not
We can't just be silent.
yeah. I I I mean I'm a little Yeah, I know like the J Fresh Patrick Bacon stuff that you don't love. His projected chance of becoming a star for Smits, 49%. Projected chance of becoming an NHLer, 92%. I mean,
What was Reid's comps in that?
I have not seen the Reid comps. Let me see if I can look them up here.
Bad defense attorney. Never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I just did it.
Yeah, you
But
did, didn't you?
I
You son of a
look,
bitch.
like I said, and I just tweeted it out. It's not McElrath instead of Tarasenko. This is I think Reid was probably the guy. I would have taken Reid. Let me be clear. I'm not.
I agree.
This is not me. I'm not backing myself out of this. I would have absolutely taken Reid here. Smits is not a stupid selection. I probably would have traded back. Even if Calgary wanted to step up, or you got Winnipeg who wanted, or Seattle or someone,
Well,
but
at
obviously,
least
and I know what's going to come out of your beady little mouth, Eric, which is if you have your guy and you're worried that other people are going to take your guy. And by the way,
no, that's not what I'm going
would
to
not
say.
have been weird for Smits to have been taken at. I think people would have been surprised. Nobody would have been shocked if Buffalo took him at 4.
No, what I was going to say is not the if you have your guy, you're going to take the guy. Is that Rudolph at 4 was a reach. Smits at 5 seems reasonable to me. It just seems very disappointing considering what else was available on the board. But like even in almost any circumstance, the Rudolph pick by Buffalo at 4 is just incomprehensible. This is at least comprehensible if it isn't still somewhat disappointing.
Yeah, the Smits piece that I think the Rangers really got drawn to is he's a big physical player. And look, if you're a member of The Athletic, read Scott Wheeler's commentary on him. Like, this is a guy, I should actually probably look that up just to kind of give some props here to my boy Scott Wheeler. Smits is a really interesting tool set player. And to be fair, he was actually mocked to the Rangers by Wheeler. And let's see what Wheeler says here, if this is actually of interesting. He said, I could see Smith's proximity to the NHL mattering to the Rangers brass, and I can see them being drawn to his swagger. I also wonder if Carl's recent comments about big cities could at least be in the back of their mind for a market like New York, which is what I was talking about before. Let me try to find Wheeler's draft. Let me try to find some of his. You talk for a minute so I could try to find his draft coverage.
I think all of that stuff is reasonable, but all of that probably also assumed that Chase Reid was not going to still be on the board.
Yeah, he has Reid ranked 3rd. And Smits was, where did he have Smits on?
Which I have to assume that's about to be the pick here from Calgary is going to be Smits, who just like or is going to be Chase Reid, who just fell into their lap.
To be fair, Wheeler has Smits as the 5th best player in the draft. Pronman has him as the 2nd best player in the draft, which is actually really interesting.
Wild.
Pronman also had Reid as the best player in the draft. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, they picked Carroll's.
They picked Carl's. Wow. So Reid is slipping
just
now.
Plummeting.
Can Chris Drury
trade with Seattle?
Trocheck with Seattle. So let's actually talk about this for a second since Seattle's up, and then I'll hop out of here. You can get Chip in, and I'll join Greg and Ryan. It's possible that after what just happened, where Robertson declined going to Seattle, Seattle looks around and says, you know what? Maybe we do need to bring in a guy who like can't say no. You know what I mean? Like they want to be better than they are. They're trying to get better. They're not able to land. Like they had a trade in place for him. Like and they turned down $120 million. Is there interest in Trocheck here?
I would have to think there's some interest. There has to be interest in acquiring some player because it has just been, it's been middle 6 forwards and nothing but middle 6 forwards and somewhat unproven guys and the inability to land anyone significant. Now, I think we would probably say Trocheck is not majorly significant in the way that we would, want him to be if we were on the other side of that. But I think in the situation that Seattle is in right now, the need to kind of make a splash, the need to bring somebody in may overwhelm that.
Here we go. I found what I
Yeah.
wanted to. So Wheeler has a thing about Smits, and he says he's a pro-sized late '07 D from Latvia who played 20 minutes a game in Liga this year and quite literally skated circles around the opposition when he played at Finland's junior level in September. I don't want to read all of this because you guys should pay for the article, but quote, he has legit hands for a 6'3" defenseman, both pulling pucks laterally and protecting them out wide, often with one hand on his stick. He has good size and a strong pro frame that will continue to fill out. He's a good skater with well above average four-way mobility, and while he can sometimes rush into the wrong read/decision, playing too much on instinct at times, the tools are definitely there, and they have come together quickly over the last year. I think he has legitimate first pairing upside and belongs in the best D in class conversation. So I respect Scott Wheeler more than anyone when it comes to prospects. I just want to reiterate, while it would not have been my selection and I would have taken Chase Reid, this is a totally fine, totally appropriate pick in the moment.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that. It's not what I would have done. This is not McElrath over Tarasenko.
Agreed. I think it's the comparative letdown. It's not an absolute letdown. I think that is the point. Comparatively speaking,
are you the one that was playing with the goddamn microphone, Chip?
I was playing with the goddamn microphone, Joe.
Welcome, brother.
How you doing?
All right. Eric, people,
yes.
Thank you all for being here. Eric and Chip are going to keep going for a little bit. I will probably hop back on in like 20 minutes if you guys are still going. I feel like we should probably go at least through the next few.
Yeah, we'll go for a little while longer. We're going to also bring Roberto and Chris on here to talk a little bit about the pick in the trade and everything else that is going on. So we'll still be here. Just come on back whenever you're done.
All right, boys.
All right.
Chip, don't fuck this up. All right.
It's not possible.
All right. Goodbye.
I mean, it feels kind of possible.
It does feel
me
kind of
hitting
possible,
the end session for everyone button would certainly
definitely don't do that. Hit leave.
I'm just gonna hit the leave studio button.
Yeah, leave studio is what
idea,
you want to
Joe.
do. It would be just like Joe to absolutely nuke the entire live stream here on his way out. That would be something that he would do. He is that kind of guy. All right,
on his way
Chip,
back to his private jet island.
Yeah, on the private jet. He likes the snorkeling, Chip. It's why he's there. It's for the snorkeling.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to have Roberto and Chris joining us here in a few minutes, but while we're waiting for them, and here's Roberto.
Here's Roberto.
Chip, I'm going to let you go first. We've got two major things to react to. First of all, the Rangers trading for Pavel Dorofayev, and then we'll come back to the pick itself, the reaction to the Dorofeyev.
My initial reaction was, this is a great trade. I thought it was going to be for 5, and I thought Vegas was going to flip 5 to Dallas to get the rights to Jason Robertson. And then when I saw that it wasn't for 5 and what the actual deal was, a top 10 protected pick 2 years from now and 26 and a third, I forgive Chris Drury for the Pavel Buchnevich trade in this
Chase
moment.
Reid to Seattle.
This was a great deal. When you look at how much Bo Byram went for. Now, look, I've been saying that just because one GM did something stupid does not force all GMs to do something stupid. But Dorofeyev is he is what we've been asking the Rangers to get for years, which is elite talent at the forward position. He's a 25-year-old who literally replaces, can score goals, can skate and score goals. And now the question will become, who sets him up for those goals and how do they deploy him and how do they make that work? And what does this do for Vincent Trocheck's trade? Having
Dorofeyev, who, at least on my cursory examination here, seems to play both wings, having the opportunity to have him play with Gabe Perreault Perot seems absolutely like the kind of guy. Perot is. We've seen some goal scoring ability from him for sure, but like his ability to distribute the puck seems pretty exceptional. Having him being the guy getting Dorofeyev the puck, I think that is pretty enticing. I like it too as well. We were talking about this well before the Dorofeyev trade happened. Um, the point you made about the skating too, and why I like this so much better than all the conversation we've been having about Mason
McTavish.
McTavish for the
Yeah.
last 2 days, is it's not that I don't think that McTavish has talent. I think he does. I think the fact that he has put up 40 something points in his limited usage in Anaheim over the last couple of seasons, with all the other arguments that Joe laid out, that he has had some insufficient line mates, that his usage has been weird. My point was just basically similar to, and I appreciate still, Roberto, you somewhat correcting me on the Keaton Vierhoff part of it, or maybe it was you, Chris, or maybe it was both of you, that he's not as bad of a skater as the reputation was going around, but my God, McTavish absolutely is. Like, I went and watched some film of him, and that is just a man with absolutely no acceleration whatsoever. And again, this is like the point I keep making about Chris Drury and all of his moves, that in a vacuum, I can accept a lot of what he has done. And then I zoom out and I look at the broader picture and it's underwhelming. And you can have slower skating players and they can be fine and contributing members of your team. But when you've got like 14 of them, it starts to get a little oppressive. And it's just great that they went and they added somebody actually with speed. Roberto, why don't we bring you in as well on reactions to adding Dorofeyev, and we'll get to Smits and the pick after that as we continue to watch what proceeds with this draft.
Yeah, I gotta admit that was just a phenomenal move by Drury. I was not I was not expecting him to be coming to New York. It is it's a few things that make this a little bit more palatable though. I will say, the thing that kind of makes me pause though is the 2028 draft pick. I wish that there was a way that we didn't have to include that. I would have much rather given them some type of prospect or anything like that. But it is several years from now. It could be a later pick. Who knows? But
it's protected on both ends, right? Because this is what I was saying to Joe right after that came in, once we got what the return is. One of the biggest complaints that I have had is I can't discern the plan. And I couldn't discern between, is this rebuild or retool? This is a move that says retool, and the return says retool as well. But he also protected it against the downside of it. It's a top 10 protected pick 2 years from now. So if it is not going well, you're protected against it being a top 10 pick. But also your hope is it is a retool, and you're talking about a pick in the 20s, in which case,
absolutely.
I agree with you. I'd rather not, if I didn't have to, but I feel a lot less bad about giving that up if it's a pick somewhere in even the early 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other things that make this more palatable is the fact that they still have Trocheck, right? Like that in theory should bring back a pick, probably hopefully higher value to what they're anticipating 2028's pick to be, right? So I'm hopeful that a trade like that could happen, whether that's in this draft, whether it's in next year's draft, or it's another roster player that we're not anticipating joining the team. Dorofeyev is a shifty player. He's a goal scorer. He's fast. He's slick. He has such great hands. It's kind of unbelievable that he's on the New York Rangers now. He's a restricted free agent. Yeah, I think he's only 25 years old. So this is like a huge win for the team. I'm curious to see what they throw at him. They're probably going to pay him Alex Tuck money. I'm hopeful that they don't kind of go crazy and give him the moon, because there are questions like who is going to be centering that line, etc. And a couple things about him though I just wanted to quickly call out is a lot of people are probably going to point to who he played with on Vegas, because this past year most of his minutes he played with Marner quite a bit, and so I think that's why he popped off and looked exceptionally good this year, is because he was playing with Mitch Marner, who is just a phenomenal talent. But if we go back to the year prior, he played with Brandon Saad and Thomas Hertl the most. And aside from them, Victor Olofsson, Thomas Hertl, Brett Howden, and he still scored like more than 30 goals that season. So he's a kid that can do it, and it's just quite the get. And I'm honestly shocked genuinely shocked that he is now a New York Ranger, and I could not be happier. This is great news.
Chris, why don't you give us your reaction here to the Dorofeyev acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things like, when you read...
Pause here real quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Winnipeg at 8, Vigo Bjork.
A great pick for them.
Yeah, it is. I'm a little sad.
Yeah, the way this draft's kind of unfolding, things are really working out for a lot of teams. I really like Carson Carroll's for Calgary. I think he even said that he wants to bring a Stanley Cup back to Canada. So if you're a Flames fan, you got to love to hear that. And then Winnipeg needs centers too, so that's huge to get Vigo work. But yeah, I mean, when I saw the news for Dorofeyev, it was one of those things like, when you read something and you're like, wait, this can't be real, or just like completely baffled by it. That was exactly my reaction. I was like, all the, impatience that we've had with Drury these last 24, 48 hours just kind of went away in that moment. It was like, all right, he does have a plan, kind of like you were talking about. This is a clear, we're trying to retool. This isn't a rebuild. We're getting this guy who's, in his mid-20s. He can be a long-term piece. He's probably right now your best winger, even, above Lafreniere and everybody. And now you kind of have a lot of options with your lineup too. He's a wing that could play either side. If you put him on the left, all of a sudden you have Laf on the second line, which is probably where he's better suited. You push Will Cooley down to the third line, which is where he's kind of best suited. And now you have Ty Cartier or whoever you want to plug in on the fourth line. That's kind of starting to take shape. So, little pieces here and there are already starting to kind of piece together. And then to top it all off, now you go out and draft Alberts Smits, who, like we were talking about the other day, is probably the most NHL-ready defenseman in this draft class. He honestly could be on the opening night roster if he impresses in camp.
Yeah, let's come to Smits in a minute here, but I'm going to put up a comment here from John, which is, so I wonder how fans feel about trading K'Andre Miller now that we picked up Dorofeyev with the pick and signed Gavrikov in his place and now drafted Smits. I think that's a good point, right? So like for the people looking, I guess, some of this could be cope over K'Andre Miller having just hoisted the Stanley Cup, but I will not play my entire album side here with regard to K'Andre Miller, but the Carolina Hurricanes play a floor-raising style of hockey, and to have turned defensemen who have struggled and who have been inconsistent with other teams into better, more consistent defensemen. Gavrikov has generally not had that problem. He has been good in Columbus. He was good in LA. He has been good in New York. And to turn the pick that you got from K'Andre Miller into Dorofeyev, it's almost enough, guys. It's almost enough to make you forget that the piece that's left out of that is Scott Morrow, who is also a guy who still exists, at least allegedly. I'm so glad Joe is not here, because I would say things just for the purpose of getting Joe very angry about Scott Morrow, which I got to be honest with you at this point, I really enjoy. Like the fact that he is willing to go to the mattresses for a guy who, I'm going to be honest with you, is probably not even on this team by the end of the year. You feel a little better about that now, the fact that even if Morrow doesn't pan out, and I don't think he's going to, you have turned the other major piece from that trade into Pavel Dorofayev. That's pretty good work.
It's really good work. It's just everybody was so upset that there were, on Twitter, everyone was so upset that the Rangers were talking about all these things and all this stuff was happening around them and nothing was happening. And then, bam, Dorofeyev is here. And now I'm just waiting for people to tell me that Dorofeyev is Vitaly Krasov 2.0 because Drury traded for him.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Because I was even getting we'll talk about this a little bit here, and then we'll get to Smits. Because there's still, of course, the Jason Robertson part of this that is floating out there. And I just want to say something for anybody within earshot of all of this. I'm absolutely certain that James Dolan appreciates the way that some of you are looking out for his money and how he may spend it. But I absolutely do not understand why you should give a flying fuck if they give Jason Robertson $15 million, especially not in some kind of weird galaxy-brained, but McDavid is only getting X amount. McDavid signed a short-term contract at a discount for the purpose of trying to help the Edmonton Oilers. $15 million in 2 years is going to be 13% of the salary cap. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Give him the money.
It's not like our seats are going to get cheaper if Dolan spends less. So let him spend the money. If the Rangers could somehow come out of this year with Dorofeyev and Robertson, that's no longer a rebuild. That's a holy fuck. We have completely turned the narrative on its ass.
Jason, as I was saying to one of these people on the Twitters, acquiring Jason Robertson immediately would be the best goal scorer on the team. And he would still be the best goal scorer on the team, even with now having just acquired a noted goal scorer in Pavel Dorofayev. So absolutely make that move if there is any possibility of making that move and give him the money. You should not be concerning yourself with what in 2 years will be 13% of the salary cap. And really, this is the big point that people need to start understanding, especially at the rate the salary cap is going to rise in the next couple of years. Do not talk about raw dollar amounts and compare raw dollar amounts to each other. The McDavid case, even in itself, is a little bit of an outlier because, again, it was a short-term contract at a lower dollar amount because he was, for reasons that continue to escape me, Sharks take Keaton Vierhoff. For reasons that escape me, he wants to help out Edmonton, who do not really always seem to want to help him out. That's fine. We have to start talking in terms of percentage of the salary cap, and with the understanding that whatever the first-year percentage of the cap is you're signing him to, it's going to go down because the cap is going to go up. So we need to change the way that we talk about these things. There should be no hesitation about giving Jason Robertson $15 million because in a couple of years, that contract is going to look absolutely amazing. And he is a guy who in the last 6 years has scored 40-plus goals 3 times. Give him the money.
I still just don't understand how we're like so many people overlook like the production that Jason Robertson has had and do not like give him the credit that he deserves for being a star in this league because if Chris Drury somehow managed, especially now that we've already used the 5th overall pick, I really don't know how realistic the Jason Robertson dream is anymore. But if he somehow managed to land him, there aren't words for how great of a turnaround that is. He would immediately be the best player on this team. You can argue who would be better between him and Panarin. We don't need to get into that right now, but that is an absolute like trajectory changing move right there. And
well, fortunately, we have the My Trade Proposals are absolute wild ass shit guy on the show with us right now. So I'm charging you officially with sans the 5th overall pick this year, which has been used, of cooking up some kind of deal that you actually think is reasonable to the Dallas Stars for Jason Robertson.
Trocheck. Build a deal around Trocheck. They have no money. You send them Vinny Trocheck, who is making a really respectable $5 million and would slot into their center lineup very nicely because Sagan's 100 years old and Duchesne's 100 years old. You put Trocheck in there for a player they can't re-sign. You use him and the 2027 first.
What I just want to ask this just for fun. If Trocheck were an unrestricted free agent right now, what number do you think he'd get? What's the salary number you think he would get?
At least 10.
I think he gets at least 10. If Charlie Coyle got what was it, 6.5?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
around there. Yeah, 6 times 6.
Trocheck's getting at least 10 on the open market, and probably even at 33, a 5 to 6 year deal.
Yeah, I have a hard time swallowing that, to be honest. I don't know if I agree. I think that there's like some weird stigma around him that people find him to be undervalued, and I don't think that he would hit the open market with such I guess tenacity or whatever. But
well, I think fans I think fans undervalue him because he's a Ranger, but I think general managers want him. I think Bill Guerin legitimately wants him.
You're right about that, yeah.
And and Steve Yzerman legitimately wants him. They just want to try to get him on at their price,
Yeah.
which, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Well,
for me,
suffice
I
it to
guess.
say, one of those guys, Jason Robertson, was not on the Team USA roster, and one of them,
Well,
Jason
so
Trocheck, was on the Team USA roster. So there you go.
I was gonna
Not a whiskey
say
drinker.
I was gonna say that is the weirdest part of the whole Jason Robertson narrative going around, is that because he was left off the Team USA roster, that's why he's not worth the $15 million, which is absolutely bonkers bullshit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
He was 4 points out of 100 points this past year.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think I said to you, Eric, the other day, the Rangers should abandon their plan of bringing in everybody who was on the Team USA roster and start a new plan of picking up the Team USA snubs.
Yeah.
Get Robertson to join Fox and bring in Cole Caulfield as well.
Yeah. That,
Matthew
well, I
Nyes,
mean,
too.
Matthew Nyes, yeah,
we've already heard
everybody
the,
who didn't make it.
We've already heard the rumbles of Vinny Trocheck to Montreal, so it's Trocheck for Caulfield. It's the deal's 1-for-1. Who says no? Don't interrupt me and tell me that absolutely Jeff Gordon says no. All right, let's talk about the pick. Alberts Smits at number 5. Chris, we have you go first here. As you and Roberto had done the multiple mock drafts, you have looked at all of these prospects, and I want you all to analyze this from 2 perspectives. Tell me your reactions to it from 2 perspectives. First, I want you to give me an absolute evaluation, right? Take all other considerations out. Look at the player, look at the number that he was picked at, and tell me what you think. And then you can give me the comparative thoughts of having selected him with Chase Reid still on the board.
Yeah, so I will say, and I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. Like, once Reid fell, I was kind of like, all right, they might go with him just because, there was conversations we were having about him potentially going second overall. Corey Pronman even had him listed first overall at one point this summer. So, based on that, you...
Sorry, I'm going to pause for 1 second here. Pierre LeBrun confirming a Dorofeyev extension with the Rangers, 7 years, $11 million.
Okay, that's
amazing.
Yeah, that's actually not as much as I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That is, so getting back to the podcast with the argument with Ryan, that's Artemi Panarin's money.
Yeah.
That's the money Panarin wanted. They gave it to a guy who's 8 years younger.
And going back to the whole salary cap conversation, he's 25, right? 25 years old.
Turning 26 in October.
That $11 million in a couple seasons, really not going to be that big a deal. So that's a good deal.
All right. Back to Alberts Smits
for Robertson.
All right. So yeah, back to the pick. Like I said, once Reid fell, kind of second guessed it. But at the end of the day, like I mentioned on the show yesterday, I think at the end of the day, the Rangers saw 2 things. They saw an 18-year-old who competed in the Olympics and that they can see slotting into their system as early as next season. In terms of where he ranked in this draft class and being taken 5th overall, if you asked me a couple weeks ago, I would probably say it's a slight reach. I think once the combine came along, the more conversations we were sort of having, all the defensemen that were ranked highly in this draft class, I think are a lot closer than a lot of people were willing to give them credit for. I've said this several times throughout the season. I really wasn't super high on Chase Reid. I think he's going to be a fine player. I would love to be proven wrong and see him become a star. I'm sure there's a good chance of that happening. I just never was really blown away by him as much as I was Carl's. Even Daxon Rudolph to an extent, I think he was being slept on a lot too. He was 3rd in the WHL for points by defensemen. He had 78 points throughout the season. All these defensemen in this class were really good, really talented. And I think with Smits, it was just really a perfect storm. He was kind of fell in that mid top 10 area. He's a perfect fit for the Rangers in the sense that he's NHL ready. He is 6'3", 200 some odd pounds. He can bring some physicality. A couple other things with him too. He can eat minutes. I mean, he's like we talked about. He played in the Olympics. That's huge experience for him. But every team he played with this year, he was getting a lot of minutes. He can do power play. He can do penalty kill. But the big thing too, he's a better skater than I think he really gets credit for too. He can move the puck. He can, do all sorts of things for you in both ends of the ice. I think there is a little element of this where I'm kind of trying to talk myself more into it because it is now reality, but I really don't mind the pick at all. Like I said, I would have taken Carl's, but at the end of the day, I don't think there was too crazy differential in skill level between the two.
Yeah. Chris, you and I are on the same page with this one for sure. At 5 overall, Alberts Smits is a good pick. That is just an objectively true thing. With the context that you're leaving a couple of other defensemen on the board to prioritize Smits, that's what makes it a little bit harder for me. I think that I vastly would have preferred them to go for Chase Reid, but they had what they wanted to prioritize in Smits. Kind of as Chris pointed out, he's a big guy. He's just under 6'3". He's a swift skater, and Reid gets all of this attention for being just this dynamic offensive defenseman. But something a lot of people kind of forget when it comes to Chase Reid is that that offensive output that he's like kind of blown up the charts for is such a small sample size. He's really kind of leapt in terms of his development. He has developed quite a bit the last year and a half, 2 years, and he put himself in the conversations for one of the top defensemen in the draft. So everyone is kind of talking about how good Chase Reid is, how great of an offensive defenseman is. Meanwhile, Alberts Smits, he's kind of just toiled away in the junior leagues of La Liga, and he, for what it's worth, I read a lot about him because I really did think that it was a real possibility that the Rangers were going to take him because he seems like, out of all the defensemen available, the safest pick. I think out of the top three when it comes to Chase Reid, Carson Karels, and Alberts Smits, sorry, Keaton Berhoff, but he has the highest floor. So I think he is going to be an NHL defenseman. I think he will be a top 4 defenseman. Will he be a star? Will he help lead your team? I'm unsure about that. If everything kind of works out, he definitely can. He proved in the junior leagues in Finland that he was honestly just as offensively talented as some of the others that are getting a lot more credit. There's a lot of highlight reel plays from Alberts Smits just kind of skating all over kids his age back in like a couple of years ago. And he got promoted to play with men. Chase Reid, Carson Karels, none of them did that. He went to the Olympics. He still played pretty well. None of them did that. So, I think that Drury sees these things, and I think his management group sees these things, and they kind of probably pegged him a little bit higher versus the others. And, you got to give him credit. Alberts Smits had a hell of a year. He definitely deserves where he's at. I think if you haven't had the chance to see some of his interviews also, there's one in particular after the World Junior Championship where he was kind of asked about playing against Team Canada and like all of their first round picks being on Latvia with a very big lack of like NHL talent that's perceived. And he kind of just, shrugged it off. He has a lot of swagger. And I think that's something that some of the NHL GMs probably would covet. And I can see why they would do it. I just don't know if I would have done it. I think like Chris, I'm talking myself into it a little bit here. It was a realistic thing. Again,
Well, yeah.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I'll make the point here that Joe made, which is this is not McElrath instead of Fowler or Tarasenko or something like that.
Yeah.
This is not what happened. Tynan Lawrence to the Blues. Okay,
I like
this
that
is
for them.
this is not. Well, I was actually going to ask this as comparison. I do want to get Chip your take on Smits as a pick here too, but this is not what Buffalo did. Right? Like Daxon Rudolph at number 4 is a reach. What the Rangers did at 5 is not a reach. And it is also a perfectly fine and acceptable pick, which is why I wanted to divide the analysis of it between the comparative, what was on the board and what they selected, versus the absolute, what is the player that they are getting and how does he fit in? I'll just make the other point too. Everything that you have said about Alberts Smits, the fact that he is played against men already, that he played in the Olympics, that this is a guy that you're probably going to expect to be in training camp, to have a very good chance of making the opening night roster. Again, all says retool and not rebuild. That is a pick that you're expecting to have on your NHL roster as soon as this fall. That is a move for a team that wants to be competitive sooner rather than later. And so help me God, I think I may be talking myself into maybe once again making the Rangers to be a playoff team. I'm not there yet. But as many of us did coming into this last season, these are two really good moves that they have made today, both their draft selection and the trade for Dorofeyev. And you add to it too, you still have two major assets to move that we got to assume they are going to move. Vincent Trocheck, 3. I'm going to let Chip go in a moment here because he's going to give the third. Braden Schneider. And then, Chip, tell me the third that I'm forgetting at the moment. And then also give me your reaction to Alberts Smits.
I would put Will Borgen on the trade block.
Yes, I'm not expecting a whole hell of a lot in return for that, but your point is well taken.
As for Smits, I do not follow prospects nearly as much as Chris and Roberto do, so I get most of my knowledge on the prospects from reading them. But what I have read about Smits, just in general, he sounds like Keandre Miller, but with a better hockey IQ. As a defenseman. Maybe not as physically gifted, but just the speed at which he plays the game, the intelligence at which he plays the game, the violence with which he plays the game. It sounds like what the Rangers wanted Keandre Miller to be. And if they can get that in Smits, God bless. I mean, the fact is, yes, Buffalo went off the board to take Rudolph, but they also passed on Reid. And Calgary passed on Reid. He wasn't even he was the 4th defenseman taken, not the first, not the second, not even the third. In terms of positional, I tend to value centers and then right defensemen for, primary. So getting Smits, especially with the depth on the Rangers, and if they do decide to trade one or both of Borgen and Schneider, the fit is a little clunky, but also if it keeps the Rangers out of the Mario Ferraro sweepstakes, I'm all for it too. So
yes, there is that.
Yeah.
Like right now, if you're penciling in the starting 3 defensemen on the left side, it's looking like Gavrikov and then some combination of Smits and Matthew Robertson.
Which is not terrible.
No, it's not bad.
That is not bad at all. I'd add also that I mentioned this earlier before all you guys were on. I know not everybody loves Jay Fresh and Patrick Bacon, but for guys that are giving projections on percentage chances that the guy becomes a star, percentage chances that the guy becomes a full-time NHLer. For Smits, it was like 53% that he becomes a star and 94% that he's a full-time NHLer. Back to your point about it being a very high floor pick. There's something to be said for reliability. I mean, you make a very good point too. The fact that multiple teams that need a defenseman passed on Chase. Roberto's point too about this being possibly a bit of a flash. I don't know. There's something to be said for all of that. We talk a lot about swinging on upside, and there definitely does seem to be some swinging on upside going on there with Chase Reid. I think I probably at the end of the day would have done it still. But yeah, I don't think, despite the fact that we had that bit of momentary letdown there, because we were all going, holy shit, they're going to have an opportunity to draft Reid here. I'm much more comfortable with this pick, again, especially after having talked to both you, Chris and Roberto, who watch all of this, as Chip noted, a lot more closely than he does, and certainly a lot more closely than I do as well. I'm feeling pretty good about that overall. I'm kind of fascinated here to see New Jersey and who they are picking here. Alexander Command.
That's a bit of a reach.
That is going off the board. I was terrified that they were going to take Belshitz.
I'm shocked they didn't.
I did not want them to take him. Yeah.
No, that felt like it would be like I grew up watching the Legion of Boom destroying, the tiny New York Rangers in the mid '90s, and watching that guy go crashing into Gabe Perreault for the next 10 years was not going to make me happy.
Who's Mike Peluso?
Yeah.
Who else was that? Why can't I remember now?
You had Bobby Holik in there, and Claude Lemieux. That whole group.
Yeah, but that was not
annoying
it's
crap.
not it's not the Legion of Doom. Who was the? I'm gonna
Well,
look
no,
that up
the
while
Legion
somebody
of
else is
the Legion
talking.
of Boom. The Legion of Boom. That was the Flyers. That was
The Legion
Lindros and
of
Leclerc.
Doom was the Flyers.
Yeah.
That was Mikhail Renberg and John Leclerc and Eric Lindros, and those guys were fucking
Yes.
terrifying.
Yes,
like
they were.
that Flyers lineup was absolutely frightening.
They're why Sergei Zubov was traded.
That started a whole tree of impact. But I wanted to just say a couple last things on Smits.
Real quick, it's
go ahead.
Bobby Holik, Randy McKay, and Mike Peluso.
Oh, there you go.
Twitching inside.
Player comparables are never accurate, but I find them very fun, right? So I think a couple players that Smits has been compared to, and a lot of the things that I've read over the year, the Hockey News had him, I believe, if best worked out as Moritz Seider, which would be fantastic, right?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That
so
would be,
obviously we're rolling a natural 20 on a D20 there, but yeah.
As notably not a prospect guy, I do live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and did have the opportunity when I first moved up here to see him play quite a bit in person with the Grand Rapids Griffins. That is a beast of a man. That would be incredible if he panned out to be like Moritz Seider.
I believe
Remember
ESPN
Banter fans
said that on the broadcast too. They used him as a comparable.
Yeah.
Remember, Banter fans, when you make your comments, it was Roberto who said Mo Seider.
It was actually the Hockey News I wanted to say. Roberto just reiterated the Hockey News. I think Corey Pronman said something. Jacob Chikrin, I believe, is another one, which would would be a pretty solid turnout. Also, you gotta admit. But
I was mildly terrified for a second there. You were going to say Jacob Trouba, and I was just gonna unplug the microphone and walk away.
I think the NHL coverage of the draft mentioned Trouba when they were talking about Smits, and I had to walk away. Thank God you called me to come onto this because I was spiraling, trying to think about what I was going to talk about here. Also, so Eric, earlier,
does that mean we should pencil him in for a trade to the Anaheim Ducks in like 5 years?
God. Depends on who comes back. I don't
July 1st, Rangers re-sign Jacob Trouba.
God. Don't you put that evil in the world.
Here. Yeah,
that is definitely one that is like, for all the conversations we've had about players don't want to come to New York City, which I think is mostly bullshit, that is one that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I will call it right here. I would not be shocked if he signs with either the Devils or the Islanders.
Oh, that wouldn't shock me either. No.
Come back to New York.
Roberto, whatever you were about to call me out for, I'm all ready for it.
Oh no, it's I think a positive thing, Eric. You said you were the trade for Dorofeyev, bringing Smits in, starting feeling like you wanted to believe again. And come on, Eric, I just want to say we're so back. We're so back, right?
We are back.
Come on, believe 2026, 2027 is the year.
I need to see what happens, obviously, with Trocheck and Schneider here, and sure, to a lesser extent, Borgen, if you're going to move a guy like Borgen there. But I mean, there's some things to factor into all of this as well, right? So I think we have felt for a while very comfortable in the bottom 6 of the New York Rangers, right? Like, this is a team for their development woes that has been able to churn out effective, meaningful bottom 6 players, to the extent that, and again, some people were weirdly beside themselves about Brett Berard being traded, which is just not something you should be beside yourself about. Brett Berard was a fine player, but the reason he was expendable is because of Adam Sikora and Yaroslav Melish. it is because you have guys like that who can play those bottom six roles. The question is the middle six to a lesser extent, but definitely the top six. And there are going to continue to be question marks around guys like JT Miller. You're going to wonder if Mika Zibanejad can continue what he was doing. But we should remember that Mika, Lafreniere, Gabe Perreault line was very effective at the end of last year. You're going to have some kind of a rebuilt middle six or shuffled around middle six there, because I'm increasingly wanting to see what a, Mika and bumping Lafreniere down, maybe the second line, but Mika, Gabe, and Dorofeyev as a first line. And then you're building out a second line. You're also going to have Liam Greentree in camp. And, while not to revisit conversations from earlier this week, but while some people desperately want to be down on everything that happened with regards to the Artemi Panarin trade, Liam Greentree may not be a superstar, but I do not think is a bad player. And the odds that he is going to be some version of an effective middle six type player in the National Hockey League seems very realistic. I keep in my mind going back to those clips of him in I think it was a Kings preseason game against the Sharks where the guy gives him a hack and he slashes the stick back. And it's like, you think I'm fucking afraid of you? I'm like, that's great. I want more of that on the New York Rangers. And the defense all of a sudden does not seem to be so bad. The other part of this we've not discussed yet is there was a lot of conversation about Adam Fox, right? Do you think Adam Fox is looking at bringing in Alberts Smits, of bringing in Pavel Dorofayev, and now saying, okay, this, again, as I was saying before, as Roberto was hyping me up to go even further than I was already going, these are moves of a team that wants to be back in the playoffs and contending very soon, not going through some kind of a full rebuild. If you're Adam Fox, you've got to feel pretty good looking at all of that and thinking about what your future with the New York Rangers is and can be.
Let me throw a July 1st name out there for you, because we are talking about people who can facilitate goal scorers, right? What about Matt Zuccarello on a 2-year, $7 million deal per year?
I would
you put
love
him
that.
On, you put him on the second line. You set one lineup of, you keep Gabe with Mika and Joe's son, and then you put a second line of Dorofeyev with JT Miller and Matt Zuccarello.
I would love that, if not for only the reason that it would once again mean that I have a Rangers jersey with a current player's name on it. Because I still have a Matt Zuccarello jersey. Because as a guy who stands only 5'6", Matt Zuccarello I absolutely loved. Let's hear it for the short kings out there. I would absolutely love to have Matt Zuccarello come back. I don't hate that idea at all. Joe Fortunato, our fearless leader.
Yeah, I'm taking control of the
again.
reins. You guys have obviously gone completely off the fucking rails since I've been gone.
I want to make, obviously, the big thing that happened while Joe was gone talking to the other guys is the extension for Dorofeyev being announced, which I'm sure you talked about there. I just want to add some context to it. I had Claude do the calculations here real quick. In the 27-28 season, we're talking about 9.69% of the salary cap.
I actually don't even give a fuck about that.
It's great.
Welcome to the new age of the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get used to shit like this costing more money.
But my point, Joe, is it's not costing more money.
That's what I mean.
In 2 years, 9% of the salary cap is beyond reasonable. That is a great deal.
25-year-old, 33-goal scorer. You have to pay the man money. That's the end of the argument. If I see a single fucking person, is this more money than Shesterkin's contract?
No, I think it's the same amount of money. It's just
I wanted him to be the highest paid player on the team so I could stop talking about that bullshit. Zero. I don't care if you have a picture of Chris Drury that you burn on a daily basis. There is not a single fucking thing to complain about this entire situation with. This was the right player to go after, who fits the timeline of a retool rather than a rebuild. A soon-to-be 26-year-old, 37-goal scorer who scored 12 goals in the playoffs, who is a legit needle-moving first-line sniper who impacts both sides of the puck, that you did not trade a single roster player or prospect for. You were never taking a guy like this at 26th overall. You traded a third-round pick and a top 10 protected 2028 first-round pick where you can recoup those assets with the players that you didn't trade for Dorofeyev, and then you signed him to an $11 million a year deal, which is just the cost of doing business.
You want to guess what the complaint on Twitter is?
What is the complaint on Twitter?
Take a guess.
I don't even know. That he's Russian?
Nope. The complaint on Twitter, what does this do for Alexei Lafreniere's power play time?
Boy.
Oh, man, it is the question that will not die.
So here's the other... we were talking about this on the stream with Greg and Ryan. I'm curious, you guys may have talked about it, maybe you didn't. Was that a cat? Is that a cat? Do I hear a cat?
You might hear a cat.
Is it your fucking cat, Chip?
But if it is, it's through like 3 doors, so I don't know how you're hearing it.
Is your cat exploding? I don't understand. All right.
Yeah, it might be my baby upstairs. Sorry, Joe.
All right. Well, no. Time out, Roberto. If it's your human child, I'm not complaining about it. If it's Chip's cat or his human child, I'm complaining about it. So
I have a very important clarifying question. What is your cat's name, Chip?
My cat's name is Mando, named after the Mandalorian.
Okay. All right. That's not as bad as I was expecting it to be. Although I just want to offer what I thought is still the best cat name I have ever come across, which was my high school band director. His cat, its full name was Beatrice Yacht Townsend. And of course, you shorten Beatrice to B, so he would come home, where's my little Biatch?
Nice.
That's funny.
Fantastic cat naming.
Chip,
my kids wanted a dog, and I told them if we get a dog, I'm naming it, and they declined when I told them the name was going to be Jabba the Mutt.
All right.
So
I don't know why I gave you control of the show.
My high school band director did name the cat Biatch in response to his friends whose dog's name was Cooter.
So
nice.
Here's the thing. I think there is a valid question there that actually has nothing to do with Lafreniere, but it has to do with if we're pivoting away from JT Miller luring the Team USA guys because none of them want to fucking come here, why are we appeasing this guy? Now, the question that I was going to ask you guys that I asked on the show over there is, what do you think the first line is next year now? Is it going to be the Zibanejad, Perreault, Lafreniere line because they worked out so well at the end of last year and they did really, really good things? Or do you now have Dorofeyev? Like, do you want to put Dorofeyev with JT Miller? I guess is really the question. And side question, Eric, now I'm curious, does getting an offensive facilitator like McTavish feel a little bit more like something the Rangers should be going after now that they have a guy like Dorofeyev who they need to get the puck to shoot the puck?
Yeah, I have to jump off. Is it okay if I go first quickly here?
Yeah, by all means.
I'm sorry to abandon you guys.
You do need to make fun of Chip for 10 seconds before you start giving an opinion, though.
Yeah, did you name your cat Mando before like the second episode of the series? Because like, why Mando, not Dinjarin? That's like so bizarre to me.
No, it was definitely Mando before the second episode of the series.
Okay, so yeah, understandable. I named
Roberto, you're such a kind-hearted soul. You tried so hard. You really did.
I love Star Wars. So, but yeah. Anyways, to answer your question, I gotta admit, I was a little nervous. Didn't want to say it out loud. Signing and trading, or trading and signing Dorofeyev. I'm just a little nervous about what that means for Lafreniere's ice time in general. Because it's just, to me, it's just such a fragile state of him being a productive potential star player. And I felt like we started to really get there, right? Last year, he started clicking. It started looking like he was the real deal after the Panarin trade. And we're like, this is the future. He's going to be like an actual top 6 unit on this team. He's going to help lead this team in scoring. And I really don't want to fuck with that. I want them to just have that line chemistry intact. I would love the Zibanejad, Perreault, Lafreniere line to just remain. I want him to continue having that chance. I'm just kind of terrified that they're going to just finagle it a little bit and it's going to have just the repercussions on Lafreniere's production. And I just don't want him to struggle. I'm a little defensive of your son.
I'd be more concerned about Perreault than Lafreniere, to be honest with you. But the power play piece is the only piece that I think is going to really matter here.
I'm not concerned about Perreault. I think Perreault's going to produce no matter. I think you could put him like with like 2 sticks on the
JT
fourth
Miller.
line, and he'd find a way to put the puck in the net. Like I
He
think
could even produce with
he's-
JT Miller.
Yeah, I'm not nervous about Perreault. I'm nervous about Lafreniere going down the lineup a little bit, and it just I want him to succeed. I care so much. I bought a Rimouski Oceanic Lafreniere jersey when they drafted him. I've been all in on Lafreniere for years. I just want him to succeed, and I'm a little nervous about the ice time and the lines being broken up, but we'll see, right? But that being said, I have to jump off, guys. It's always been a
All right.
pleasure.
Thanks, Roberto.
Roberto, it's
Thank
great
you so
to
much.
see you. Thank you for
Nice
being
seeing
here.
you two guys.
Thanks,
All right,
Roberto.
bye.
I would
Chris.
say, can I just say real
actually
quick?
continue this, Eric, because then I want to
Yeah.
get to draft with Chris here.
I would say the advantage you have is that Mika and Gabe and Lafreniere work together, right? You maybe even start the season with that. We're adding 2 more fucking games this season. You have plenty of time to play around with the lines and see what different combinations look like and see what clicks and what doesn't. And you can go back to Mika and Gabe and Lafreniere if you need to. So I very much would like to see what Mika and Gabe and Dorofeyev look like together as a line. And then I would like to see what, I think in an ideal world, your third line center is JT Miller. And I don't know who your second line center is going to be. Maybe, Joe, to answer your question, I am more amenable now, again, depending on what the return is. It cannot be for Trocheck. You have to get more for Trocheck than Mason McTavish. I think it was Roberto who said in Slack that he keeps wanting to say Mason Marchment, and like I now cannot get, or was it you, Chris?
Yeah,
I
that was
cannot
me.
get. Yeah, it was you. I cannot get Mason. I keep wanting to say Mason Marchment, and
Literally
I'm like,
every time I see them tweet about Mason McTavish, I don't know why. I just read it as Mason Marchment.
read as Mason Marchment. Yeah,
They can't get both. That's
I'm
too much.
I'm more
Eric, where are
amenable
we at the
to
draft?
it now. The Blues are on the clock.
Are
at
they picking
15?
This is literally my question. So, obviously the
The
Blues,
Blues are
done.
not trading any of these.
Yeah,
picks
obviously
so
they're
far.
done with
No.
the McTavish conversation. Before we get there, Chris is the residential prospect expert now that for Blueshirt Banter. My initial knee-jerk reaction is
Wait, pause. Friedman now saying McTavish to St. Louis for 15 and 29.
Well, there's that.
All right.
All right. Never mind everything I just said.
It's kind of astounding that I just
That
that
is
I got
a
it.
that is a
That's-
lot for Mason McTavish.
Yeah.
Let somebody else pay that price by all means. Absolutely. If that was the cost, I'd much rather have. So like again, for those of you that are fucking complaining about Chris Drury, wouldn't you rather trade the 2 first-round picks the way that Drury did for Dorofeyev rather than fucking McTavish? Like that?
Yes.
Either way.
Yes.
So
Not even
Chris,
close.
my knee-jerk reaction to Smits over Reid is not the pick that I would have made. I would have selected Reid. The Rangers had somebody fall in their lap that many people thought was, one of the bigger, easily should have been taken 3rd overall. However, this is not McElrath over Tarasenko level stupid. And there are a lot of people that I respect, including Scott Wheeler, and I read this on the stream before, who says that Smith should absolutely be in the discussion of best defenseman in this draft. So what is your takeaway from the pick that the Rangers made with everyone on the board?
Yeah, I was kind of in a similar opinion with it. I was saying before, I think it really goes to show you how close all these defensemen really are, because like you said, Reid was kind of the guy who fell, the clear-cut player that they probably should have considered. I still believe that Carson Karls is the best defenseman in this draft class. I personally would have taken him. And then you look at Buffalo. They reached for Daxon Rudolph, who, he was 3rd in the WHL in points. He had 78 points this season. He's in that conversation too. You want to talk about, Ryan Lynn, Malt Gustafson, like all these defensemen really are not as far from each other as you may think. And then you have Keaton Verhoff in the conversation too. So I think it really comes down to NHL readiness. I think this is a guy that kind of checks a lot of boxes for the Rangers, the biggest one being that NHL readiness and the potential to join the lineup as early as next season.
Yeah, and
Because we were saying this too, Joe. Like, this is a draft pick as well that says retool. This is a guy that
Right.
you can expect to be in camp, if not on the Rangers opening night roster this fall.
But I do want to say, I just want to add to this that I am such a huge, if the talent and upside wasn't there, I would be beside myself. So I do want to make it clear that while I think it is utterly ridiculous to draft for timing rather than best player available, there are people like Scott Wheeler, who I trust immensely, who project Smits out to potentially be a top pair defenseman. This is not the Rangers swinging wild with a pick that nobody expected. I think
This is not
raised-
Daxon Rudolph at 4.
right, like
It's not
if-
Vitaly Kravtsov at 9
or Elias Anderson at 7, quite
or
frankly.
Elias Anderson
So
at 7.
this is not a stupid selection by the Rangers. It is not the selection I would have made. I just want to make this clear. I would have taken Chase Reid. But there are definitely people who have Smits rated higher than Reid. There
You
are
have
people.
the Buffalo Sabres, the New York Rangers, and the Calgary Flames among them.
Well, and this was my other question here is like, and maybe Calgary had Carl circled from the jump, right? Would Winnipeg or Seattle have been willing to trade up to grab Chase Reid? I think that was really my big question, and I asked it on the stream. Now, obviously, Seattle didn't have to do that. They ended up getting him at 7, so they're happy as pigs and shit in general. This was not a bad selection. This is a guy who is playing professional hockey right now in Europe. It's okay. This is okay. It is not a panic move. It doesn't feel great. Greg actually said on the stream, had the Rangers have drafted Smits over Reid and then traded for Dorofeyev, nobody would be talking about it. But because the order was reverse, it's fresher in your mind.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the
it's a good
bigger
point.
question that we need to pivot to right now is McTavish is now off the board. What's next for the Rangers? Because I think McTavish was happening at the same time as Dorofeyev. McTavish kind of fills a different need, especially if you're going to trade Vincent Trocheck. Buffalo? Like, what are we thinking here?
I think Buffalo for Trocheck, and I think Vancouver for Schneider. I think
But when?
Well, I think in Vancouver's case, it could be Schneider for Brock Besser. And then you have a line of JT Miller centering Dorofeyev and Brock Besser. And then with Buffalo, they just got Zellweger, they just got Rudolph. They can't play every single defenseman they have. So is Trocheck for Radim Murkta and a 2027 first and Jack Quinton a deal?
Yeah, I wonder. I don't like Besser. I just don't.
Or sorry, not even Jack Quinton. Ryan McLeod. Then you've got that replaces the Mason McTavish.
There's a lot of interesting options in Buffalo. I've been getting ripped apart all day by Sabres fans by suggesting Constel Hellenius. Apparently, he's completely untouchable and the greatest thing to ever play hockey, the way some of these fans are talking about him. But
did they see Vincent Trocheck kill the 5-on-3 against Canada?
Clearly not, the way
Apparently not.
they were ripping me apart. But there are, I think, a lot more alternative routes to explore now that McTavish is off the board. There's other centers, wingers, whatever, that you can kind of go out and target to really fill out your top 6, top 9. I think they're going to be in fine shape trying to come up with a new plan for the whole McTavish deal.
Well, and they got the needle mover. Like they got now it. Maybe the Rangers trading the 26th overall pick is what signaled to maybe that was part of the deal for Anaheim. And Anaheim, obviously the Rangers backed themselves out of it then. I'm astounded that Anaheim did this for futures, even though they're this year futures. Like this is not a particularly deep draft, all things considered. There's some diamonds in the rough, but at the positions where Anaheim is going to pick, you're kind of out of that realm. And Chris, you can keep me honest here. Like you're not getting a guy that's going to really make things happen next year or maybe the year after.
Pick for Anaheim is in here, and I'm kind of waiting to see what that is. That's going to be interesting. So go ahead, Chris.
You are so loud.
Can we also just talk about who's going to play defense for Anaheim right now?
Well, this was my question. Like, this is where the Schneider/Borgen, wherever it was going to go, made the most sense. Is okay, you're trading all these guys / you're not signing these players. You're getting back a roster player. Interesting.
I mean, I love that pick. That's a great pick, especially for, what are we, 16 right now?
15.
15. That's a great pick in that spot. But again, I ask, who is going to play defense in Anaheim right now?
It's not going to be John Carlson. He's going to go to Tampa Bay, probably.
Can I interest them in a Braden Schneider or a Will Borgen?
Well, but now what are you trading for?
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you are trading one of them for like a future first-round pick. I am increasingly convinced that
maybe just like Chip, they don't protect Leo Carlson and he's suddenly available.
Listen.
Dude, that is an instant fireable offense, you realize.
But you don't pay me, so it's fine.
Well, that doesn't mean that you didn't bring great
shame to your
family and ancestors.
That's
and
true.
The site in general.
That is true.
I am increasingly convinced that Drury went out 2 years for the first round pick because A, it gives him a little bit more capital to kind of maneuver with if there's another trade on the board that he can make a move for next year. But B, I would be much more amicable to getting a first round pick 2 years from now from another team in a Trocheck /Snyder/Borgen trade, if that's what's even out there at this point.
I mean, look, if you look at it and play it out, Boston has, I believe, Florida's pick in 2028.
It's not a bad pick to have.
That is not a bad pick to have. I would gladly take, and it's unprotected.
I would take Minnesota's 2028 pick, especially if they can't re-sign, Hughes.
I would also take Toronto's 2028 pick because Toronto's still going to be in the shit.
Does Toronto even have a 2028 to trade?
Yeah. No, it belongs to Boston.
Yeah,
it
I
also
don't think
belongs
they do.
to Boston. So I'm saying if I were trading Trocheck to Boston, I would take either of those 2 first-round picks.
Well, I don't think he's going to Boston. From what I can gather, and
well,
by
now
that I
they
mean
got
read on
Peterka.
Twitter, it's Toronto and it's Buffalo right now with like a side helping of Montreal. Montreal intrigues me the most just because there's more there to pilfer from.
2028 Toronto pick is with the Flyers.
Yes, that's that. And Chip, I will defend you here. That one's a little confusing because it was supposed to be with Boston, I think, but then because they won the draft lottery this year, it moved, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
everything
was all
shifted.
Downstream of that.
Yeah, so
it all shifted.
Boston has the 2027 Toronto first-round pick.
Which I would also take.
I just, in my wildest dreams, I did not have Dorofeyev as a thing on the board for the Rangers. I also think that, if nothing else, maybe this keeps Gavrikov happy. He wants to be around. I heard you guys talking about Adam Fox. I can't, this is the type of move where you've brought in someone young who's actually a needle mover, and you're going to be able to start sort of, building your way out of this. Now, is this going to entice somebody else to come to the team that maybe wouldn't have otherwise? Maybe. The Rangers are better today, right now than they were 2 hours ago, an hour and a half ago.
Chris, you're better at prospects than anyone else on this. So if it were Buffalo and you got Merca back for him, how does a Merca-Schmitz pairing work as your second pair D?
I mean, down the road, that wouldn't be bad at all. I mean, Merca's got the size, which, is in enticing quality in itself. I don't see him. I think in an ideal world, he's probably best suited on the third pair. So, especially with a team that's still currently employs, Braden Schneider, Will Borgen, and you have, all these other, guys like Iorio and Morrow still in the depth charts, not to mention EJ Emery. Then, like I said, I don't see him really as a second pair defenseman. I think he's a solid third pair defenseman with, a guy like Alberts Smits. But again, I think Smits is going to be higher in their lineup. I don't know. With Buffalo, I'm more intrigued in their forward prospects. I really like Consta Helenius, but like I said, it doesn't seem like Sabres fans really want to get rid of him. Noah Ostlund, I believe, has been described as a coach's dream. So, he's a center, can slot to the wing if needed. He can probably be in your middle six long term. I don't mind Mirka. I just wouldn't have him super high on my list.
Is it with Toronto? Is Brisson the agent for Matthews too?
I don't know, but I actually asked the question if Brisson was the agent for Dorofeyev, and he is not. But Ryan pointed out that the agent for Dorofeyev is the agent for. Does anyone want to take a guess? He plays for the Rangers and makes the
Trocheck?
same amount of money.
No.
Shesterkin.
Igor Shesterkin.
Oh.
So maybe this was also keep Igor happy.
Well, yeah. Listen, yes and no.
Well,
I think the Russian
also
thing
get better.
is more of a coincidence than anything else. Yeah. If Dorofeyev was Latvian, they would still make the trade for him. I think this keeps Fox and
what if
Igor
he was
happy.
Bulgarian?
Now we're getting into a different conversation. I think this is more. We have the Rangers didn't score goals last year. Now they have a guy who can score goals and do it in buckets and scored in the playoffs too. And I was kind of articulating this on, Greg and Ryan's stream. The Rangers theoretically could have been a playoff team last year. I think things definitely went about as poorly as they possibly could, but I don't think any of us would have batted an eye if the Rangers made the playoffs last year. I think the Rangers are certainly in the conversation of being a playoff team as constructed right now. And there's still some questions, and we got to see what comes in and what goes out. But if the goal is to kind of start building yourself to a place where you're competitive, this is a really, really great first move. And if Smits happens to be playing hockey for the Rangers next year, great. I'm not necessarily sure that helps as much as maybe it seems. But the contract, the trade itself, there is not a single thing you can complain about here.
Maddox did Daenerys?
Daenerys?
Dagenet, I want to say.
Dagenet.
It's a tough one to pronounce. That's kind of a reach too.
Yeah, but you can definitely see a trend with St. Louis. They get McTavish, they drafted Lawrence, and now they drafted this center too. So they're stacking up down the middle.
And did Vegas feel like they needed to take the Rangers offer of 26 because they were punished and lost their second round pick this year? Did John Tortorella help the Rangers?
I think Vegas goes after Robertson.
I'm convinced that Vegas is going after Larkin.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that makes more sense.
I don't have any inside information there, but if Larkin, the quicker Larkin moves, the better from a Trocheck perspective. Although it's interesting because the teams that Larkin is in on, Buffalo's not in on Larkin. Montreal's not in on Larkin.
Minnesota.
Yeah, but it seems like Minnesota's not really in on Trocheck anymore. At least that's what Greg and Ryan were saying on their stream, and I'll take their word for it. So, I don't know. What are we waiting for? I guess at this point,
set the price.
Trying to
control the narrative,
control the market.
Torture fans.
I can't remember who it was who I read who said this, but that they were hoping that the Larkin deal would get done so that the center market would essentially be set and they'd have the only remaining premier asset, and then they would be able to use the Larkin trade essentially as a model for what they were going to ask to get back and could point to it as a reference. So maybe that's the case, maybe it's not, but you definitely get the impression that if they haven't moved him yet, and with Larkin's trade demand coming out, that they seem to be waiting for that move to happen.
Well, and Werenski's out there now too, which is another piece of this that I think is a little bit interesting, because if I'm, and we've talked about this previously, if I'm Bill Guerin, all I'm trying to do is make Quinn Hughes happy. And if I just need to get one of the boys, then I just need to get one of the boys. You went for Kachuk, you couldn't get him. Okay, totally fine. You have Larkin on the table right now, Werenski theoretically right now. It seems like they kicked the tires on Hellebuck but decided against it. I don't know if Trocheck is as much of a thought here for them, but that's okay. And to be fair, we haven't heard shit about Minnesota being in on them on Trocheck. It's been all Buffalo, Montreal, and Toronto.
I mean, how many of the boys do you need to get in Minnesota? You've already got Matt Boldy out there. You've
Brock
got
Faber.
Brock Faber. So if
Hughes wants to play
bringing
with the
in
boys.
Sure. I think Hughes wants to play with I think Hughes wants the bag. Same as Robertson does. Hughes wants the bag, and whoever is going to give him the bag, he can call his boys and FaceTime with them, weekly. It'll be fine.
Just saying.
Just to circle back on Dorofeyev real quick, a couple quick things. I don't know if you guys talked about this before I went on, but I think the one thing that isn't being talked about enough too is they got him without giving up the 5th overall pick. That's a huge win in itself.
Dude, it's incredible work.
Yeah.
If the Rangers traded just the 5th overall pick straight up for him, I would have been a little bit more hesitating on my holy shit, this is a grand slam by Chris Drury, but I don't think people would have been shocked.
Yeah. Even when the Dorofeyev piece first came out and we didn't know what the return was, my first instinct was, oh God, they're going to trade the 5th overall pick.
That's what Eric and I were saying on the stream. Was like, well, was this the... And to be fair, the argument for that would have been, are you getting a forward that's a 25-year-old 37-goal scorer with this pick? And the answer to that question would have been no. Now, you can debate the logic of that and like what that means for a team that's in the position that the Rangers are. The fact that they walk away from the day-to-day with Dorofeyev and Smits, it's a home run. Dorofeyev on his own is a grand slam.
Chris, I'm with you on the being very glad that they didn't surrender the 5th overall pick there. But like the first thing that what I said on the stream and what always pops into my head first in those scenarios is the 5th overall pick could be anything. It could even be Pavel Dorofayev, right? Like it is at the end of the day an unknown. And I agree with Joe's take from earlier that you don't pick for timing exclusively. You can pick for timing when that player is also somebody who is well positioned to be a good contributor for you several years down the road, who is the kind of player that you want to add to your defense there. So I agree. Like coming away with Dorofeyev and coming away with Alberts Smits, I think Greg's point that you mentioned, Joe, is a really good one, that if the order of operations here was reversed, we would not be talking in any way about the Smits versus Reid part of all of this and would just still be blown away by the acquisition of Dorofeyev and, would just not have any of that in our brains. Of course, we would know at that time that it wasn't going to be for the 5th overall pick because that pick would have already been used. So there's a little bit different calculus in there. I mean, I'm also, too, just to go back to the Mason McTavish part of all of this, as I was talking myself somewhat into the possibility of acquiring McTavish before that move was announced. If that was the price for that, too, like, I am glad somebody else paid that price.
Yeah.
Like, I let the Blues do that.
This is the third time, not to cut you off, Eric, but to completely cut you off. This is the third time that Chris Drury has been deep in talks for, now it's Byram, it's Tuck, and now it's McTavish, and backed away when the price got too high. And a chief complaint of Drury, aside from he doesn't fucking do anything, which obviously he's rectified somewhat here with Dorofeyev, is he was a fucking pushover on trades. And he stood his ground with Trocheck. We'll wait and see how that plays out. And he has stood his ground 3 different times here. You can make the argument, as I would, and we talked about this on the show, like Tuck is 5 years older than Dorofeyev is right now, a worse player, and signed to a $10.5 million deal for an extra year. 8 years, $10.5 million. Dorofeyev is 7 for 11. And Dorofeyev is 25 and not 30. And a better player in general. So Drury getting into the water and then backing out before he had to really swim for these guys is good business. It's what a general manager should do. Kick the tires. He's outside of Tuck, looking in the right places, and pulled the trigger on the move that was the best for the team. Kind of what a general manager is supposed to be doing. That's the job.
But by the way, social media did not miss its opportunity on Twitter right now, there's already a picture up. Gavin McKenna demands trade to Florida Panthers.
2 quick draft updates I want to say.
Not wrong, just early.
Shocked Ryan Lynn is still on the board. And also,
I am too.
The more Ethan Belchetz falls, the more I wonder if Drury makes a push to try to get a mid-first back.
Well, I think this is the other piece of the question. And it's funny. I was going to ask you, Eric, like, at what point do we call it, right? Like, where in the draft are we comfortable saying, okay, nothing's happening here for the Rangers? And to the point that Chris was just making, if the Rangers really are dangling Will Borgen and Schneider, we're not out of the woods yet. Like, if he sees somebody he really likes and there's discussions going on there, who do we have? Does anyone have the list up of what teams are up next?
I'm pulling up Tankathon right now.
Tankathon, by the way, is the greatest draft asset.
It is. I love it.
Of all time.
Because there's a lot of interesting names that are still available too, especially defense. Tommy Bleal could be a sneaky good pick. Like I said, I'm shocked Ryan Lynn's on the board, but bad news, he's only 5'11", so
yeah, the Rangers
fans
were
won't
never
be
drafting
happy
him in
with
the
that.
first place. Alexander
I mean,
Command was one that I thought the Rangers would be lucky to have float around at 26.
He went early.
The Devils took him at
12?
12, which I find
that's
astounding, to be honest with you. But the Rangers, I can't necessarily say swung for talent with Smits, although they did. It's just not like Reid would have been swinging for talent, I guess. They were
the thing we were talking about too is Smith's ceiling could be a top pair defenseman, but realistically, he's probably a guy you can very confidently rely on to at least be a second pair defenseman. So while the upside might not be extremely high, I think the floor is high enough.
Well, I would argue a top pairing defenseman, that's about as high outside of like superstar you're going to get.
Right.
To the point that you're making, and I don't disagree with you, Lias Anderson was he may max out at like a 60-point guy, but the floor is he's going to be nothing less than a third-line center. Now, we saw how that played out. I don't get that sense, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong with Smits. I get the worst he'll be is this second-pair defenseman who eats a shitload of minutes.
Right.
But this is a guy who could, if everything goes right. And by the way, we bitch and moan nonstop, especially with McTavish, that the Rangers fucking go after guys that can't skate. This is a guy who can skate. So maybe lesson learned, maybe. But if he projects out that he could be, on that level, that matters. Chip, give me the teams.
All right. So Utah just jumped into 17. They took they swapped with the Kings. They moved up from 19 to 17.
I guess Trocheck's not going to LA.
Well, no. LA is still on the
picks?
board at 19. They just
they're at 19. Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah. So
that was they literally swapped picks, or they got something else?
I don't know. I'm just looking at Tankathon. Okay. I don't see what the trade detail was. So you got Utah on the clock now at 17. After that's Washington, then the Kings, then Buffalo. So you could do Trocheck for 20 plus and get someone in there. Utah's on again at 23. Vancouver, who makes sense for who we know, like Schneider, is on at 24. And then, 27, you've got San Jose, and, they're still a destination for defense also. So you could be on for a while, boys.
By the way,
that's all I'm saying.
Marchenko is now not returning to the Blue Jackets because of the contract that Dorofeyev got from the Rangers.
Really?
So Chris Drury is just destroying both the narrative that he doesn't make trades, which I, by the way, put up there 2 minutes ago or 2 hours ago, and internal competition within the division.
Sorry, what is the Marchenko thing?
He's now pointing at Dorofeyev's contract and saying, "I want that money," and Columbus is telling him no.
I'll take Marchenko.
So would I.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
If they would like a 2027
just to give a Patrick Bacon just commentary for I don't know if you did this before, Eric, He ranked Smits as 5th overall, so the Rangers took him right where he should have been. Was I saying it on this show or was I saying it on the other stream that, like, while that matters, you also have to take into account who the Rangers passed on to draft him. So I understand that even though he was ranked 5th, it's just a point that, like, oh, he didn't go way above where he should have, but whatever. He says, quote, Model says it's a solid pick. On top of that, I'll add that Smits went super beast mode in the Olympics against some of the best players in the world, and the model doesn't even take that into account. So I just go back to, it, again, if it were me, the pick would have been Reid. But this is not a bad pick for the Rangers to make at all.
Yeah, I just want to say that between what Roberto said and I know, Chris, you were higher on Chase Reid and all of that, I've grown far more comfortable with even the idea of Smits over Reid here. Like, I understand the argument for Reid, but like it just seems like a solid, completely reasonable draft pick, and we were only momentarily freaking out about it because of the comparative and where everybody had slotted Chase Reid in there.
If
Just
Buffalo
for everybody's
took Reid, we're dancing.
Yeah, but just for everybody's point of reference here, the Mammoths trade was they acquired the Kings' first-round pick for their first-round pick and a 2026 third-round pick, and they are selecting right now and have a bunch of Vegas Golden Knights people.
So this is
on stage. What the fuck is going on?
This is the high school hockey team from Rhode Island where the shooting happened. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure what the correlation is with this specific pick that they're having them come out for, but
Yeah,
I am very interested to see who Utah traded up for.
Yes.
Also, putting the Marchenko stuff aside, imagine Columbus losing Marchenko and Werenski in one offseason.
And just giving Charlie Coyle 6
And
years
just giving
and
Charlie Coyle,
$6 million.
just after handing Charlie Coyle the bag.
Hey, Joe, you remember when we were talking about what team should be relocated, and I said the Columbus Blue Jackets? I'm just going to re-up that here.
Re-up the Columbus Blue Jackets?
That is a absolute clown show of a franchise, and they should be relocated somewhere.
So I don't disagree with you. However, I am at the point now with Team USA where I actually don't blame any team for their player wanting out. I do think that the Tkachuk stuff in Ottawa and the Matthews stuff in Toronto, simply because of the Canada connection, is a little different. But, like, if Werenski looks around and he's like, this team fucking sucks, I want to go play with my boys, I get it. Like, I agree with you that Columbus is a disaster. It's hard for me to not look around and see some of the other, evidence poking around there, I guess. But yeah, that's
well,
fine. They could be part of the Houston, Atlanta, draft where Chip leaves Leo
The
Carlson.
Utah pick is
took,
Belchets.
Yeah, they took Belchets.
Okay. There you go. Look,
that
Chris, look at you, man. This has been impressive.
I was going to say, I'm surprised he fell this much. I mean, he did suffer an injury at the end of the season, but, like, this was a kid who was ranked very high for most of the year. I kind of see some Rick Nash in his game. He's got size. He's power forward. He can shoot. He's an offensive weapon. This is a good move for Utah. Like I said, if he fell any further, I was really going to be interested to see if Drury was going to get in there at all, because he was, I believe, line mates with Liam Greentree and Windsor.
Liam Greentree,
so
yeah.
Definitely a connection there. But, yeah, it's a good pick for Utah.
And they did deal away JJ Peterka a year after acquiring him, which, by the way, the underrated part of that, right after acquiring JJ Peterka, the Boston Bruins also announced that they were hiring Kevin Adams to work in their front office.
I really need to find another industry where you can fail that much and continue to get hired as you can in front offices in the National Hockey League.
Well,
it really is incredible.
It's funny because Greg asked me, do you think that teams are looking at Vincent Trocheck and saying, he's supposed to be a leader for the Rangers. The Rangers sucked this year, the past year, 2 years. This is a guy that we don't want to bring in the room. And I said to him, I have one single retort to that. Does anyone know what my retort was?
Go fuck yourself?
It was not. It was an actual retort.
All right. Because that's usually your retort.
Mike Babcock.
All I'm saying.
I don't disagree that a general manager like Eric Tulsky probably would look at that and say, you know what, this is not the business that we want to get in.
Do you know what is going to be so diabolical?
99% of general managers do not think that way. 99. Mike Babcock is a head coach for a team that is in the fucking hottest seat possible, where they have 2 years to convince their stupid superstar best player in the game to stick around, and they selected Mike Babcock. Oh, and by the way, Connor McDavid wanted him there too.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, he wanted him, to be clear, he wanted him there because they wanted somebody who was going to bust the ass of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Bouchard. You know, the guys who are not the fucking problem on that team.
Correct.
Right? Unless Mike Babcock can also play goal, I don't know what he is going to do to improve that situation. Those guys are not the issue.
Okay, so we all agree that Mike Babcock doesn't get hired without Connor McDavid wanting him there, correct? So how diabolical is it going to be when Connor McDavid cites Mike Babcock as the reason he is demanding a trade out of Edmonton next year?
Oh, God.
This is what you get for giving me what I asked for.
Mike Babcock met with them and said if they weren't 100% in on Mike Babcock, he had to get out of there. So where are we at
they were
now?
definitely all in on the Babcock.
Is anything
The
happening
Washington Capitals are on the clock.
Yeah, they're not trading with the Rangers.
They're not
I think
trading
you
with
have to
the
wait until
Rangers.
Buffalo.
Yeah,
Buffalo
but
at 20,
I say if Buffalo doesn't make a trade with the Rangers, we could probably call it at that point.
I think that's reasonable. So where's Buffalo coming up here?
They picked 20.
Is
20.
20.
They're
Okay.
20, yeah.
Because who's coming after that? We've got Philly, Pittsburgh,
no
Utah,
Philly, no Pittsburgh.
Vancouver.
By the way, can I just say right
Ottawa.
now,
Yeah, I agree with this.
Utah could look. I know you got from Ryan and Greg that it's Toronto and Buffalo.
but that's not
but I
from
think-
Ryan and Greg. That's just what's out there.
No, I thought it was on their stream.
Montreal and Buffalo.
No, it's Toronto and Buffalo. Oh, they mentioned that they were I don't think it was their information
Okay.
though. I think it's just that this is what's
Got it.
out there.
I would not be surprised if Utah or Vancouver are destinations for either Trocheck or Schneider.
I still think Seattle is an interesting trade candidate, if nothing else, because they can't get guys to go to their fucking city, and they'll get guys who don't have a choice in Schneider/Borgen, although they traded him /Trocheck. But can I just say before we get off the topic and I forget, Chris, I'm going to bet $1 million if he's on the board, Pittsburgh takes Ryan Lynn. I'll bet $1 million.
Yeah, that's a Kyle Dubas pick for sure.
1,000%.
Yeah. Also, I wouldn't really rule the Flyers out for Trocheck. I know trading with your rival in some instances is
In division.
in some opinions, or in division. I don't know. Trocheck makes a lot of sense for Philly. The style of game he plays, they need centers. I mean, I know they got Zegras, but they also just gave Christian Dvorak 5 years and $5 million. If he's
Trocheck for Mitchkov, straight up. Let's do it.
sure, yeah,
I would take Zegras back in a trade for Trocheck.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't think
And
Zegras is a Drury guy.
in between the 21st overall pick, and there are
Yeah,
some
he seems like a
names-
milk drinker.
That's a
He's from-
Sullivan guy. It's different.
He's from Bedford up here in Westchester, so it could go either way.
All right. Well, let's say then, just to validate also the Ryan Lynn pick, we're going to hang around here until the 22nd pick is made, which is that Pittsburgh Penguins pick, so we can know if it's Ryan Lynn or not, unless he comes off the board early. But I'll also extend for the Flyers possibility that was just spelled out there, and then we'll we can all watch from our homes, and if something crazy happens, then we're not coming back on the program, but. We'll definitely have some analysis at blueshirtbanter.com. I want to ask a question because I've seen this circulating amongst a number of people. The trade demands that we've been talking about, right? Zach Werenski wanting out, seeing Brady Tkachuk. Now, look, all of these things, I am against monocausal explanations of everything. Everything that happens in this world has multiple explanations for why it happens, and the attempt to distill it down to this one thing, only one thing, is almost always flawed, if not just completely wrong. So you can certainly point to something. Oliver Suvanto, Washington? Who is that?
That's an interesting pick for them. He is a very defensive-minded center that honestly reminds me a lot of Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So
Well, that worked out well the first time.
yeah,
All right, so you can
Sorry.
point to the Brady Tkachuk part of it and some of the Americans who were in Canada and all of the stuff hanging around from the gold medal and the Olympics and all of that. But there's been a larger argument made that you used to see star players, star type players, want to go somewhere where they could be the guy, where they could take on the weight of the franchise. They would be the leader. They would be the star. Like if you want to throw back to the Rangers example, like Mark Messier after his success coming to New York to try to break the curse and bring a cup to New York. And you're seeing a lot more of these star players say, I don't want to be the guy. I don't even want to necessarily be one of the top guys. I want to be on the third line on a stacked super team. What do you make of this evolution of the National Hockey League? Is there a change is it league changes? Is it changes in the players' attitudes and the way that they're looking at these opportunities? How do you view this?
It's not just the National Hockey League, though.
I was going to say, this is LeBron James's fault.
I think
let me just say one thing real quick
that.
there. I agree with you that it is, but it is new to the National Hockey League, and it has been present in a lot of those other sports for a much longer period of time, and hockey has remained exempt from it. So you could talk about the NBA, but the NBA is different for all of the reasons that Joe and I had discussed, and Chip, you and I discussed as well, for the makeup of teams and just everything about it is so dramatically different. So talk more about it, at least in the hockey.
Is it what you're saying, or is it coincidental that the USA boys want out of their respective teams and want to play with each other because this team did actually build a bond? And Florida happens to be a destination, like to your point, Eric, of there's not one thing. Florida's a tax-free state. That helps a lot. They won 2 Stanley Cups in a row, went to the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row. Tkachuk wants to play with his brother. Like, is it really a surprise? Is it more of creating
I think it is. I think it's somewhat of a surprise.
I don't necessarily think it. I'm not disagreeing with you. Let me just put it to you this way. I don't think Tkachuk went to Florida because he was like, I don't want to be the best player on a team. I think he went to play with his brother.
I agree with the Tkachuk case is very much
Larkin,
about
I think,
wanting
wants
to play
to go
with his
to a
brother.
winner, and he probably thinks he's good enough to help, but I don't think he's doing it to. He gave Detroit how many chances?
I have the sense, right, that those kinds of players in the past would look at and go, I want to go be the guy that helps build that kind of we're going to win, 3 cups in 4 years somewhere else, not go be like the guy that is there for the 3rd cup that Florida is going to win in 4 years, playing third line minutes on that. I think there is a diminishment in the roles that these guys want to take on, the weight they want to take on, the responsibility that they want to take on.
So I think they are different cases. I think Joe's right, which pains me to say. Tkachuk wanted to go be with his brother. He wanted to go be in South Beach. There were reports that whenever they were on the podcast together, Matthew would keep telling Brady, I drove to the rink today and it was 85 degrees. And Brady's up in Ottawa where he needs to follow a snowplow to the rink. In Larkin's case, I think he wanted to be that. I think he wanted to be the guy who was the catalyst to winning seasons, and he didn't find a willing partner in Steve Yzerman. And so he's made the decision, I'm not going to get fucked again. I didn't like it. I'm going to a team that has shown a commitment to winning, and I'm sure there was a whole bunch of soft tampering that went on over in Italy, and that's why he put on those teams they did. And also with his own eyes, he has seen Vegas is willing to go the extra mile. Minnesota was willing to go the extra mile to get Quinn Hughes. Florida's always willing to go the extra. So I think those are the reasons that happened. I think in a lot of cases, like Werenski, it's Columbus and Hellebuck. It's Winnipeg. No one wants to go to these places. And
that's not.
So
That's
where they want out of.
Eric's
it's
point
where they
is
want to go.
Where they want to go. And what I would say to you, Eric, because I am kind of on Chip's side with this one, is I think the tax piece matters. And I think that they want to go to winners. And right now, the winners and like the really competitive teams that can fit these guys happen to be teams that have their boys on it. And I don't think Tkachuk was going anywhere other than Florida, to be honest with you.
I agree with that.
I do think that Dylan Larkin tried to be that guy in Detroit. It did not work. And now if I'm him, I'm thinking to myself, fuck this. I put my time in. I'm going to a winner. Here are the teams that I think are good. And oh, by the way, I want to play with these guys that I love.
Yeah, I think the Team USA of it all really is the driving factor here. I think I wrote this in the last Brady Tkachuk story I did earlier this week. If they came out of Milan with a bronze medal or even no medal at all, none of these trade requests would be happening. Dylan Larkin, maybe, because, he has been trying to be the solution in Detroit for all these years. They just couldn't get it done. He started this whole thing, and then Brady kind of saw his opportunity and took it in. And now the conversation's going further. Well, what does Connor Hellebuyck want to do? Now Zach Werenski. I think it's becoming a chain reaction because of that. I don't blame Dylan Larkin. I have a hard time blaming Zach Werenski because he's kind of been through all that just as long. The Brady Tkachuk piece, that's a situation where if you really want to be a star in this league, if you really want to be a leader, I mean, this is the guy who was the captain of the Ottawa Senators, who were finally kind of getting back into the playoff picture. They didn't really do great this year, but the pieces were kind of starting to come into play for them. If there was a situation for one of them to really want to have that motivation to stick around and be the solution, he was in probably the best spot to do that. I think, like you guys said, he wanted to go play with his brother. He wanted to go win. He got a small taste of it, not only with Team USA, but let's not forget, Matthew won back-to-back Stanley Cups with Florida, and you don't think Brady was at those parties? You don't think Brady was around all those celebrations? He probably wants to experience that firsthand.
Can I go a step further? I think if Florida fucking sucked, Brady would have wanted to go there. Okay. Eric, I want you to hear this because I'm going to say something.
Okay.
I'm not saying this about you. Okay. Are we on the same page?
I'm listening.
Okay. I think a lot of this argument that is out there right now is Canadian hysterics that
just going to say
we fucking lost to the United States in this bullshit game where we should have won because we're the fucking kings of hockey. And now all these fucking American Yankees want out of Canadian teams because they can't handle the heat. And they want to go like, listen, if you want to make the argument that I've seen plenty of Ottawa Senators fans do that Florida fits the Tkachuk's political beliefs better, cool. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I also think if Matthew was in, whatever, Minnesota, he'd want to play in Minnesota. I think he wants to play with his brother. He gets an opportunity to play with his brother. He got a taste of the freedom with Team USA. Great. I think this is Canadian writers being really fucking pissed off that American players who are really good on Canadian teams want to go back to play with their brethren who happen to be in the United States. And when Austin Matthews asks out of Toronto, it's the Steve Simmons article will be seen from fucking Mars. Like
Buffalo's on the clock right now, boys.
I think these guys don't want to be winners. They want to be on super teams and be the seventh best player in a team where hockey doesn't matter anywhere outside of the building is just fucking hysterics from jealous idiots.
Well, let me say,
and I'm not saying that's you, Eric. Seriously, I'm not saying that's what you're arguing.
I want to say a couple of things. One, I am playing at least some level of devil's advocate here for the point of conversation, and I am echoing some of those points that I have seen from Canadian teams. So let me say a couple of things. One, Brady Tkachuk, I agree with you. I don't think that's a particularly great example for the sake of this argument because his brother plays on the Florida Panthers, and I agree with you. I think he wanted to go play with his brother. Now, if the rumors that we have seen about Connor Hellebuyck going to the Florida Panthers, if Florida continues to be the almost sole destination for a lot of these team players, now we're talking super team. And I think we do have a little bit of a different colored conversation than the one we're having right now. So maybe this conversation is premature, but not necessarily wrong. We'll have to see, what happens with Werenski, what happens with Hellebuyck. I agree with you on the Canadian hysterics part of it. I don't think it is just having lost to the Americans in Milan. I think it is also the fact that they have not won a Stanley Cup since the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. I think it is the fact that one of the things they don't want to admit, which like one of the guys I think is a co-host for Daily Face-Off who was in my mentions arguing with me today about the tax piece in Seattle. I don't think that they want to acknowledge that it's really fucking expensive for these players to be players in Canada. I am not saying, as I said to him numerous times to try to get it through his apparently very dense head, that taxes are the only reason that these players are making these choices. Again, I am against monocausal explanations of things. But you're an absolute fool if you think that guys who make 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, $15 million a year don't care at all about how much they are paying in taxes, which goes up marginally when you get higher into those brackets. They absolutely do care about how much money they're parting with. Yeah, they can still be happy if they have a $6 million salary and their take-home pay is $2.8, $3 million. It's not a question of happiness. They are as protective of their money as you and I are, and just because the numbers are larger doesn't obviate any of that. None of them want to admit, these Canadian writers who are in hysterics about all of it, that Canada is just, with possibly the exceptions of New York and California, the most expensive possible places for these players to play in terms of the tax bills that they have to shell out. That combined with the kind of insanity that these writers are offering up, what happened to people like Mitch Marner, who was a hometown boy, all of these things combined lead to a lot of these players wanting to get out of Canada. And in that sense, I cannot blame them. And I don't know what these Canadian teams can really do about that, because they can't make their cities warmer. They can't necessarily make it all that more attractive in that way. And they can't change Canadian federal government or provincial policy. So it's going to continue to remain expensive. Now, I do want to see what the Buffalo pick is here. But yeah, so if the destination continues to be Florida and Florida and Florida, I do think we need to have a different conversation. Like if Wolredski somehow ends up there, if Hellebuck somehow ends up there, then we're talking salary cap era super team, and I think there's a different conversation to be had.
The thing to remember also is where did Team USA party after winning gold?
In Miami. Yeah.
In Miami. So, and I'm sure that while they were partying in Miami, Matthew with a cigar in his mouth has an arm around
I'm not disputing
Connor
this.
and saying, Bob's a free agent. This is what it's like when we win.
Yeah, I'm not disputing
Why
this.
wasn't JT Miller doing that bullshit, Chip?
Because they weren't partying in New York.
Because they weren't partying in New York, and there was nothing to attract them. In fact, if anything, I seriously fucking wish they would put their arm around JT Miller and said, why don't you come to South Beach?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he's next. Who knows?
Maybe.
From your lips to God's ears.
Quick question for you guys. Alex Ovechkin back next year or no?
I think if he was gone, he would have been gone already.
Yeah.
No, there was just a lot of talk after the Cryu and Tuck pickups that this might have been bracing for Ovechkin
I'm sorry,
not being
Chip.
back.
Did you just suggest that the Washington Capitals have acquired the most annoying child television cartoon star, Caillou?
I said Cryu.
Kairu.
I will say though that getting 8 years of Alex Tuck for what was it, a third and a minor leaguer. That's pretty terrible for Jarmo Kekalainen to give up 8 years of Alex Tuck for that little.
I think Alex Ovechkin strikes me as the kind of guy who wants some accolades on his final tour around the league. So I think we'll have maybe not a full season's of knowledge worth of knowledge that he's going to call it quits, but I think it's going to be closer to like we're going to know at the very end of the season that he's calling it quits.
So 2 quick things. Emily Kaplan says the Rangers' offer from Mason McTavish did not include any draft picks at all. It was player only.
Okay.
And the Montreal Canadiens and Utah Mammoth are expressing interest in Kirill Marchenko.
That's not great for the
from
Trocheck
Pagnotta.
situation either.
Winger versus center.
Yeah, but like if they're going after, you're not doing both, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make.
Where do you put Marchenko in that lineup? You already got Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Suzuki. You got Demidov. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if
it's one of those good problems to have.
Yeah, if they just want to trade a couple of those guys over to the Rangers, that would be absolutely fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure the Florida Panthers would take a couple of those guys.
Well, they're building a super team, Eric.
Yes. Yeah.
You Canadian hysterics writer.
I do have to echo, though. Who was it that they? I can't remember who it was that they just added, but Phil's comment of this Florida Panthers team, the asshole over 60 of the team is
Garnet
just off
Hathaway.
the charts.
Garnet Hathaway.
Garnet Hathaway.
Yeah.
Like that. He is so dead on accurate with that. Like that is. It is instantly one of the most hateable teams, I think, in recent NHL memory.
That's what they want. That's what they want to be.
Chicago Blackhawks are expressing interest in Jason Robertson. So this brings me back to my Rangers point on Robertson.
What? Yeah, maybe they shouldn't have traded the 4th overall
Anton
pick.
Frondell.
But this brings me back to the Rangers thing on Robertson. Like, I don't think if Jason Robertson's chief concern here was winning, he would take the 12 and stay in Dallas. I think he wants the bag, and he also wants to go somewhere where it's fun to be young and single. And that is not St. Louis, and that is not Seattle.
Look, I will put in a good word here. It is Chicago. Chicago is a great city.
Yeah. Chicago's great.
I love Chicago. I love Chicago. You have to live there during the winter, though, Eric. So that's
Chicago.
You also
has
have to live in New York
to
during the winter.
Too.
What did you say, Chris?
Chicago has a lot of prospects to get a trade done there too.
Yeah, I was actually looking at their prospects as thinking that in the event, I think I wrote a Joe's reaction of the week to this, actually, that like, oh, maybe they would be interested in trading for or drafting Reid over one of the forwards if they happen to fall, which they obviously didn't. But yeah, interesting.
All right. So Philly's on the clock. We will stay through the Pittsburgh pick. So we probably got like another 10 minutes or so here.
If I'm Chris Drury, I would really be interested. I would not mind trading up for this one and going for Adam Novotny.
You heard it here first, folks.
Mainly a winger, I believe, but I could see him playing center. He can definitely be a nice middle six guy. Quick with the puck, can skate pretty well, good hands, good shot, good kind of shiftiness. He's going to be an interesting player. There are a lot of really good options this late in the draft too. I do wish the Rangers still had that pick, but I will gladly take Dorofeyev any day of the week.
What they have Carolina's 2nd round pick, right? So that's deep.
64.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah.
What point are you concerned that Trocheck has not been traded?
The day after the trade deadline,
July 3rd.
Yeah,
I am of the mind that he is here next year.
If he's still here on July 3rd,
yeah,
then
because if he is,
I thought the bridge was burnt, Joe.
Yeah, I do think the bridge is burnt. I'm wrong if he's still here July 3rd. He submits a new no trade list on the 1st. So I'm giving Drury 2 days basically to figure that shit out. And then
I mean, that is an interesting point. I mean, I'm wondering if perhaps Drury is waiting here to see what the new, not like knowing and having dealt with the possibilities based on his current options, now waiting for a new no trade list to come in and seeing if it opens up other trade options for him. I mean, there's risk associated with that, but at least, if it hasn't been working based on the channels that have been available to you before, at least you might get some new channels to work.
So I will say, let me just say, I would still trade Vincent Trocheck today. I think it's good to get out of the Vincent Trocheck business. I think it would be an enormous mistake to not trade Vincent Trocheck. However,
say there's a great butt coming here.
If
not
you
as great as apparently you think Ryan Mead's butt is, but
if you he has a glorious ass. If you have him with Dorofeyev. That probably gives you a more competent, especially with McTavish off the board right now, and I don't know anybody else that's really kind of hopping in at this point, probably gives you a more confident,
Cloud.
yeah, sure, solution there. And if nothing else, maybe raises Trocheck's trade value because he'll just put up points playing next to him. Not saying I would do it, but I am saying that I could at least see that being not the worst thing in the world. I'm still team, I don't know how Trocheck is here. It's going to be a complete distraction.
I agree. I also don't love having both, having my middle 6 centers be JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I'm quite ready for that part of that experience to be over. All right, give me the
One of
Flyers
them
pick
could be
here.
a winger.
Yeah, I mean, again, in an ideal world, one of them, JT Miller, could be a Florida Panther.
That is correct.
Doesn't he want to go play with his boys? Why didn't that bug get JT Miller? I mean, seriously.
It did, but it got him to Vincent Trocheck.
Correct.
Instead of Team USA, it was the Pittsburgh whatever they were.
All right.
Trade alert. We got a trade.
Oh.
Sharks acquired the 21st overall pick.
What? San Jose is just...
What are the
22
Sharks doing, man?
They might go Tommy Blale. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Blale?
Yeah.
Moncton?
So it's 27, 62, and 120 for 21.
Okay.
Yeah, I could
I
really
love how
see
we're all in
that.
just complete silence.
Loving the disappointed looking Flyers fan. I always like disappointed looking Flyers fans.
They've only picked once so far, right?
Yeah,
pick
they were
twice?
supposed to pick. No, they were supposed to pick 27th. Well, they did pick twice. They picked
No, they
second
picked
and
twice.
ninth.
They picked second and they
second.
picked ninth.
Oh, God.
So they've already
forgot
gotten
about the ninth, too.
Stenberg and Keaton Verhoff.
Okay. Yeah, I could still see them taking Tommy Blale.
Maybe they trade the pick to the Rangers for Braden Schneider.
Yeah, they
Wouldn't that
traded
be
it, just
fun?
traded again.
That's just a simpler trade with extra steps.
Yeah. I'm terrified of the Rangers trading up at some point for Brooks Rogowski.
I wouldn't mind it. He was one of the first guys I really looked into when I first started doing the draft radar series this season. I mean, I don't know how high his ceiling is, but he could be a decent third line center, which again, when you're drafting the first round, you don't really.
I love when Chip gets his shit thrown back in his face.
No, because I'm not terrified of it from the player that he is. I'm terrified of it for the amount of bullshit that's going to spew out on Twitter about the Rangers being size whores.
Weirdly, Smits is getting, people are warming up to this now. Weirdly, this is
He's
the
a good player.
reverse.
I mean, vibes are good for the first time in how long? It's kind of easy to warm up to this. I'm seeing a distinctly fewer snarky tweets about Chris Drury. Very interesting. Yes, quite. Shallow
and pedantic.
I do appreciate that the people with the Drury clown faces are still sticking with their Drury clown faces. They have not.
Well, at this point, you're in. You don't.
Yeah.
You can't get
Ryan
out
Lynn.
of this.
Ryan Lynn.
There we go.
Forgot he was still available. I can't believe he fell that far.
So, but you know what, Chris, you're right. They jumped Pittsburgh to make sure they could get him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means I'm right then.
Yeah. Joe had that first.
No,
so.
it means Chris is right.
No. That means I'm right.
Wow, that's a great. I can't believe he fell that far.
Boy, tell you what, I think I texted this to you, Eric, and maybe you too, Chip. Greer is actually quite impressive.
He's been doing some
considering
stuff.
Considering all his GM, front office experience came at the heel, sucking on the teat of Chris Drury.
He's
doing a really
learned
good
all
job.
the right lessons, and Chris Drury apparently learned all the wrong ones.
Oh,
if we've gotten to the visuals of sucking on Chris Drury's teat, I think we have definitely come to the end of this live stream.
Well, wait, are we sticking through Oh no, we're
No,
not.
we're
We're done.
No, it
now,
was to
right?
see. It
Sticking
was to
through
see if
Pittsburgh to
Pittsburgh
see
took
if
Ryan Lynn.
No, and I was correct.
So San Jose saved us 5 minutes.
Pittsburgh did not take Ryan Lynn.
Well, they couldn't because San Jose knew they were going to and traded up to get him. So
Correct. So your bet that they took Ryan Lynn was wrong because they didn't take Ryan Lynn.
I am correct. You know I'm correct. You're just jealous.
Charlie, I'm just marking this spot too.
Mark it, Charlie.
If Charlie listens to all of this for an ombudsman, the man deserves to have his 0 salary doubled.
Triple it. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, he's gonna. Well, we're gonna double it by taking half of your salary, Chip.
Correct. I have to go to bed
That's fine.
anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Chris, residential prospect expert. You
Thank
can read
you.
the thoughts that he has on the picks that the Rangers have made as we go. I think my Joe's reaction of the week is going to be my draft grades that I do annually. So, Chip, the noises that are coming out of your microphone are unholy. Just so we're
I hope
aware.
that was also the cat.
that would be great if that was also the cat. Thank you, Chip.
It may not have been.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for commenting. Thank you, Vegas, for trading Dorofeyev to the Rangers. Thank you, Chris Drury, for actually doing something. And Alberts Smits, welcome to New York, as Taylor Swift says.
I think they said on the broadcast he is also a Taylor Swift fan, so that's fitting.
Oh, yeah. Let's fucking
Boom,
dance.
boom, boom.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. I will see you next week. Bye for now.